My chairman.
Okay. How we were meeting this week.
By God grace.
By His grace. Sharp.
Brother, you look very nice.
You look taken, sir. You look taken. Yes. Madam is doing a good job. The future governor of Nasarawa.
Amen.
That's what I'm saying.
Amen. We don't do amen for you before you do it. Because I go come close and see you.
Honorable members have examined no petition. We have 2 points of orders. First, we take from Honorable Asabe Vilita Bashir, and then Honorable Sani Zoro, get ready. After that, you take your point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my respected colleagues. I remain Asabe Vilita Bashir. I represent Chibok, Goza, and Tambua Federal Constituency. I come from Borno State. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise under Order 824 to enable me present a matter of urgent public importance, Mr. Speaker, and I want to plead on this honorable house that they should allow me to take this matter as urgent, Mr. Speaker.
Seconded to the first limb of the motion, Acting Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am Honorable Chike John Okafor, representing the people of Ehimembano, Itu Boma, Obo Federal Constituency. I'm from Imo State. I rise to second the first leg of the motion ably moved by my colleague. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it. Honorable Zakaria Ugaladima.
Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleagues, Honorable Zakaria Ugaladima, member representing the people of Barijakusko, stand to second the second leg of the motion. I do second. Thank you.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it. Honorable Bashir, you can now move the motion.
Thank you, my respected Speaker, my honorable colleagues. This matter of urgent public importance is on the 4 years anniversary of the abduction of Chibok school girls, calling on the federal government to urgently rescue the remaining 112 school girls still in captivity. Mr. Speaker, sir, this House notes the adoption of 219 school pupils of Government Girls Secondary School Chibok, local government area council of Borno State, by the Boko Haram insurgents on the 14th day of April 2014. Mr. Speaker, sir, this House appreciates the efforts of the federal government and the security agencies, which has led to the rescue of the 107 of the adopted Chibok girls. Mr. Speaker, sir, this House regrets that Thursday, 14th April 2018, marked the 4 years anniversary of that dreadful incident, and 112 of these girls are yet to be rescued. The remaining girls that are yet to be rescued, Mr. Speaker, respected colleagues, are Aisha Lawan, Hawa Muta, Falta Lawan, Hajara Isa, Kabu Mala, Mariam Abba, Hanatu Musa, Laraba John, Deborah Nuhu, Sarah Dauda, Aisha Grema, Asabe Ali, Margaret Shetima, Yana Yidao, Hawa Kwaki, Hawa Musa. Others are Saraya Musa, Hawa Joseph, Yana Pogu, Jinkai Yama, Elizabeth Ibrahim, Rifkatu Yakubu, Hanatu Nuhu, Mariamu Abubakar, Hamsatu Abubakar, Deborah Abbas, Hawa Peter, Ruth Beatrice, Hanatu Ishaku, Mary Amos, Victoria Dauda, Saratu Suji, Mary Dauda, Saratu Ilya, Halima Ali, Bilkisu Abdullahi, Rebecca Joel, Zainab Yaga, Awa Ladi Paul, Ruth Lawan, Laraba Malum, Ruth Wazi, Rahila Johanna, Iya Abdu, Sarah Samuel, Zara Ishaku, Rejoice Sanki, Deborah Abari, Sikta Abdu, Saraya Ali, Mariamu Lawan, Esther John, Ladi Joel, Lydia Ima, Rose Daniel, Mariamu Yahaya, sorry, Hawa Abdu, Laraba Paul, Esther Ayuba, Mary Dauda, Margaret Wasai, Miriam Jafaru, Uma Solomon, Agnes Dauda, Mary Dama, Patience Jacob, Tabi Thomas, Hawa Stella, Mariamu Yahaya, Saraya Stova, Jummai Abogu, Elizabeth Job, Susanna Yakubu, Mary Sule, Saratu Sauji, Ladi Wadai, Yayi Abana, Pomta Kabu, Grace Amadou, Saraya Paul, Esther Marcus, Rifkatu Amos, Guba Bura, Monica Enoch, Sarah Enoch, Rifkatu Galang. We have Dorcas Yakubu, Deborah Solomon, Salomi Pona, and last Saraya Amos. Mr. Speaker, respected colleagues, this House is aware of the government's assurances to rescue the remaining Chibok girls through negotiation with the insurgents, but further regrets that the negotiation is taking too long. This House commends the urgency with which the federal government handled negotiation and the release of the adopted Dapchi girls. This House is concerned about the fate of the remaining adopted Chibok girls and Leah Shariba, who are continuously subjected to untold hardship, slavery, molestation, abuse, rape, pregnancy, and forceful marriage in the hands of their adopters. This House is further concerned about the agony their parents go through each day they remain in captivity. This House resolves to urge the executive arm of government to urgently conclude negotiations and secure the release of the remaining adopted Chibok girls, as well as the remaining Dapchi girls in Boko Haram custody. And two, this House urges the executive arm of government to be proactive in its duty to protect life and properties of Nigerians, especially school children who are targets of the insurgents. Thank you. I so move, Mr. Speaker, respected colleagues.
Honorable Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Distinguished colleagues, my name is Honorable Dennis Namode Agbo. I represent Udenu Igwezeno Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, I'm from Enugu State. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion as ably moved by my distinguished colleague. Mr. Speaker, I so second.
Honorable Dr. Asabe Velita, please, 2 minutes to lead the debate.
Mr. Speaker, respected colleagues, 14th day of April 2018 marks 44 years of the anniversary of the adoption of the 219 Chibok girls. And if we could remember, respected colleagues, last year when we marked the 3 years anniversary, we urged the federal government to intensify its search for the girls with a view to rescuing them. And happily, as at today, 107 girls out of the 219 adopted girls have gained their freedom, and they are all in school. But sadly, we still have 112 of these girls in the custody of the insurgents, plus Leah Sharibu from Dapchi, making 113. They have not still regained their freedom. Mr. Speaker, sir, this honorable house must not relent. We must continue to put pressure on the federal government to intensify whatever it has to do for these girls that are still in captivity to gain their freedom. As fellow citizens of this country and as leaders and as their elected representatives, the girls that are in captivity and their parents have high hopes on this honorable house for the rescue of these adopted girls. This motion, therefore, is calling on the federal government to put more pressure or to intensify its negotiation or whatever it is doing to make sure that the remaining girls gain their freedom, as well as the federal government, whose main duty is to protect lives and properties. They should be very proactive in doing so, especially they should secure all our schools across the country, because the school children now become the prime targets of these insurgents. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I pray that my colleagues will support this motion. Thank you so much.
Any contributor? Honorable Bode.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bode Ayorinde is my name. I represent Owo Ose Federal Constituency. I rise to support this motion. It is a sad thing that we are celebrating 4 years of adoption of innocent children. Hopes upon hopes, promises upon promises.
Sorry, Honorable Bode, are we actually celebrating? So you better correct that so that it doesn't go into our record that we're celebrating the abduction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I withdraw the word celebration, but when we rise up again to mark the 4th year, and we continue to speak about it, and as a member, as an important arm of government, it is a sad thing. Like I started my contribution, that we mark it again with sorrow, sadness in our minds, and we want to appeal. I want to join the mover of the motion to appeal to the security agents to work harder and make Nigerians happy by ensuring that these girls, innocent girls, are released, and to prevent future occurrences. Recently it occurred, and just like the mover of the motion said,
silence, please.
A good number of them have been released, but one of them...
Please, honorable members, take your seats, please.
One of the recent ones...
Honorable Gaza, please. Silence, please.
Thank you, Chief Whip. On the strength of our faith, could not be released. It is on this note that I joined the mover of the motion and appeal to our colleagues to pass this motion, and appealing to the security agents, to the executive arm of government, to do all that are necessary, all to ensure that these girls are released back to their families and to Nigerians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable MT, Acting Leader.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, my name is Mohamed Tari. I represent Marte Mongono, Nganzai Federal Constituency of Borno State. I salute the motion sponsored by Honorable Asebe Bilita Bashir, who represents Chibok in Borno State, where majority of the Chibok girls were kidnapped. But I want to educate this House on the modus operandi of the Boko Haram insurgents and what accounted for the speedy release of majority of the Dapchi girls and what accounted for non-release of the majority of the Chibok girls. It is a well-known fact that the Boko Haram insurgents are now factionalized. There is the Shekau faction and there is the Bornawi faction. The Shekau faction is more radical, while the Bornawi faction is much less radical compared to the Shekau faction and is more amenable to negotiations with the government and what have you. And that is what accounted for the speedy release of the majority of the Dapchi girls, because the Dapchi girls were kidnapped by the Bornawi faction, which operates in northern part of Borno State, my constituency inclusive, while the Shekau faction operates in southern Borno and parts of central Borno, where the Chibok girls were kidnapped, and they are more radical in nature, and that is why up to now the government could not succeed in releasing majority of the Chibok girls who are kidnapped and kept in custody by the Shekau faction. Be that as it may, I fully support the other arm of the motion that Leah Shaributu, the only Dapchi girl that was not released on account of her faith and on account of the fact that she refused to denounce her religion, government should intensify action so that Leah Shaributu should also be released to join her family, while the remaining Chibok girls that are in custody of the Shekau faction, who are more radical in nature, government should also intensify effort towards to the release of the remaining Chibok girls. Thank you.
Honorable Frederick.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, Honorable colleagues. Agbeji Yejemina Frederick is my name. I represent Sagbama Ikeremo Federal Constituency. Izonkeme, I am from Bayelsa State. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, this is 4 years of the abduction. And Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, the parents are still groaning. And I want to use this opportunity to urge the parents of the girls that have not been released to keep hope alive. The government is trying, employing all strategies to ensure that our daughters are brought back alive. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, this issue is critical to the life of this nation. These girls are supposed to be our future leaders. And of course, that's the more reason why we should all be a lot more concerned as to how we will be able to recover them.
Honorable Sajos.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues.
Honorable Dasuki, Honorable Sajos, please.
I think that
take your seat.
at this 4th remembrance anniversary, we need to call on the intelligence department of our security to brief us on what is going on as regards their intelligent findings. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, my colleague, Honorable Mogono, has just talked about factions. One faction amenable to negotiations, more liberal in their actions, and then the other faction very radical. How do we confirm this? Intelligence needs to tell us whether this is the situation and whether that is the more reason we have not been able to recover or get secured the release of the ones that are still in captivity. Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues, situations like this takes a number of years to investigate. And at this point, the intelligence department of our security agencies are more crucial to the release and recovery of these girls a lot more than using force. This is a time where the intelligence department of our security forces need to speak to us and to say, in these 4 years, in year 1, this was the situation. In the second year, this is the extent to which our investigations took us. And in these 4 years, this is what we think that these our daughters that have not been released is, and that is why they are still in captivity. It is these intelligent reports that will lead us to devising the appropriate means of getting these girls back. And I think that it is important that this House do invite particularly the intelligence agencies of Nigerian security to brief us on what is their findings through these 4 years that they have investigated, they have put their intelligence apparatus into use. So that, Mr. Speaker, we will also have the opportunity of advising the executive and urging them to put a lot more efforts in ensuring that these girls are brought back to reunite with Nigerians, and particularly to reunite with their parents who have been under pains for the last 4 years. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, this motion is very critical. It's very, very important. It touches on the fabrics of existence of this country. It touches on the lives of our future leaders, and these girls are mothers who are going to make this nation a proud nation from the children that they are expected to give birth to. Mr. Speaker, I urge my colleagues in this House to treat this motion as very important and very critical, and ensure that we also are part of the investigation to get the appropriate information as at 4 years of the kidnap of our daughters. Mr. Speaker, I so submit. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues.
Zachary, and then last from that will be Chairman IDP.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Zachary Mohammed. I represent Barutin Kayama Federal Constituency, Mr. Speaker, from Kwara State. Mr. Speaker, I want to adopt the submissions of my colleagues as if they were mine, but to add that, what measures are we taking to forestall the reoccurrence of this ugly incident? First, it was Chibok, Dabchi. Where is the next target? Because girls, women, and even the civil society, the civil community are sub-targets. So are those schools now in that area, are they under proper security? Because we must, in considering this motion, we must look at that leg of it. What are those things that we're putting to forestall a reoccurrence? Because both Chibok and Dabchi are an embarrassment to us as a nation and to our security forces. We know they are trying their best, but their best might not be good enough, but we must forestall the reoccurrence of that. Because these terrorists, for every ground they cover, they get more confident. And we must stop all those things or put those things in place that will make them not too confident. That is why we must secure our schools. If the schools are in boarding system, what are the security measures that will be put in place? And I want to say further that the students who are in that area and their teachers should be told and taught simple security routine, so that when there is a threat, they know the next thing to do. It's very unfortunate that in this part of the world, when you hear explosion or you hear gunshots, Nigerians will be heading towards the source of the gunshots rather than taking cover. So
Honorable Henry Wanwoba, please take your seat.
We as a house, in that
Henry Wanwoba, please take your seat.
In that motion, should consider the fact that we should tell the relevant government agencies, the Ministry of Education in those states, to educate the students and their teachers on simple security routine. If there is a threat, what do you do? So that the number of casualties will be going down. I heard that some things, money is exchanged hands in terms of what they call it, negotiations. But we mustn't wait, we shouldn't be reactive, we must be proactive. Being proactive means that we must provide security for our schools so that they are warded off. At the same time, the civil populace too should be educated enough so that they would know the simple things to do when there's a threat. Mr. Speaker, this is my submission. I join my weight, I throw my weight behind this motion, and I urge my colleagues that we should support this motion and further re-emphasize that the security agencies should be invited to interface with our relevant committees to tell us the journeys so far. That's my submission, Mr. Speaker.
Chairman IDPs.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, my dear colleagues. My name is Sani Zoro. I represent Gumel, Gagarawa, Suletan Karkar and Megatri Federal Constituency in Jigawa State. I also chair the Committee on IDPs, Refugees and Nurses Initiatives. At this juncture, the Honorable Speaker, on behalf of my constituents and I, we want to express our solidarity and support to the Nigerian nation, the various governments in Nigeria, the northeastern region, as well as the parents of the abducted Chibok, Dapchi, and all other girls and boys that have suffered from abduction in the northeast. Honorable Speaker, may I use this opportunity to offer an information that sometime after the abduction of the Chibok girls, an international intervention was spearheaded by the former Prime Minister of Great Britain, the Honorable Gordon Brown. And he called that intervention the Safe Schools Initiative. Funds were generated for the purpose of safeguarding schooling in the Northeast. We understand millions of pounds were generated and they were to be deployed, among other things, to improve or provide high perimeter fencing in schools in the Northeast, deploy CCTV cameras, employ, train, and deploy civil security in those schools, as well as purchase generators that will power the schools and other security appliances that are necessary. Honorable Speaker, my dear colleagues, up to now, we have not heard about that scheme taking place. And I want to inform the Honorable Speaker and this Honorable House that our committee is committed to tracking those funds, because those funds that must have come from foreign sources are not normally captured in appropriation, and that is why it is taking time for us. We also know that as part of that initiative, one of the European governments actually evacuated and transferred some students from certain schools that were considered to be in danger zones to some other parts of Nigeria. Now, Honorable Speaker, with your permission, I thought we could also amend this motion to allow the Committee on IDPs to investigate the funds that were generated for the intervention, otherwise called Safe Schools Initiative, under the Honorable Mr. Gordon Brown, the former Prime Minister of Britain. So with their permission, I'm ready to move for the amendment to this motion. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, just write the amendment down, pass it so that we can take a vote on it. I've noticed a few members who have indicated their interest to speak on the matter. I've written the names, Honorable Osai, Diri, Toby, and Sadiq will round it. So in that order, Honorable Osai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues. I remain Honorable Osai, Nicholas Osai. I represent Doko Kwani Federal Constituency of Delta State, Mr. Speaker. I think it's sad we are talking about, after 4 years, we are still dwelling on issues of the return of the Chibok girls. Mr. Speaker, you will recall in 2015 that this government came under the issues of rescue of the Chibok girls. And today, Mr. Speaker, all the apparatus that is necessary to address the issues of the return of the Chibok girls are dysfunctional. The fish is rotting from the head, and the fish cannot exist. Mr. Speaker, we expect that the security agencies that are supposed to be collaborating among themselves and sharing information are completely dysfunctional. Mr. Speaker, you see them quarreling openly and fighting themselves, and yet government have no solution. Mr. Speaker, you will recall recently that one of our own visited United Kingdom, and the issue that was there, that election is not what it's looking for. They want to address the issues of security and economy. Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues, there was a declaration before travel. Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues, the complete issues, the essence of democracy, Mr. Speaker, is to protect the life of the citizen. And that is the reason why government comes to power. But today, Mr. Speaker, the two critical issues that ought to have been addressed for us to have shelter, economy, and securities are all in comatose. Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues, you will recall that this honorable house have addressed the issues of security several times. We passed resolutions, both Senate and House of Representatives. But at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, our resolution, has it been implemented? You see executive, Mr. Speaker, you listen to the investigation recently conducted by House of Representatives on issues of economy, collapse of the exchange rate, collapse of SEC. Mr. Speaker, a government that rules itself by impunity, destroying even the law that they ought to obey and implement, cannot address issues of security of recovering the Chibok girls. We listing a proper nation. The first key issue that a nation must address is for protection of its citizens. Recently, yesterday, Mr. Speaker, why we should say
please.
That security is dysfunctional,
Silence,
Mr.
please.
Speaker. Yesterday, we lost another 32 lives between Benue and Nasarawa State. And you are still calling on government. Who is government? Call an executive because all of us are a government. We have done our own part. We have passed resolutions. We have engaged security to address the issue of Chibok girls. And people are flatting that they want to come back to election without addressing that the Chibok girls must have come back. You are marking what? At the same time, even the opposition, they are not doing enough. Lie down here like what was done in Congress and call executive to take action. You remember the last of the struggle people in Congress of the United States of America were staying for days voting. And what are we doing? Is it because the children are not ours? We are to represent them. And people are talking investigation again. Mr. Speaker, these issues of Chibok girls must be addressed. If it's only thing that the House will address for the next 1 month, we should address the issue of Chibok girls. Because one loss of life is loss of many. Today, honorable members are harassed along the road. Our people that do business are harassed along the road, kidnapped. Even in your own farm, You cannot go to farm to produce for the nation and say you are propelling agriculture when you have no security to address the issue of our agriculture. You say you are improving the economy, and the moment there was a declaration, there was a collapse of the stock exchange. It went down completely. That shows the economy is weak. Opposition, you must make the government in power to address the issue of security, to bring back the Chibok girls, to make sure that the Dapchi remaining, whether faith or not, is Nigeria not secular? Whether you are of the other faith, must you have to be kidnapped because we are detained? And we celebrated the coming back of Dapchi girls because they were this different faith. All of us serve God. Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues, in as much as I remembered the Chibok girls, pains, Mr. Speaker, highly painful, because if they are my children, how will I feel? This is what I want my colleagues to address. On this ground, Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues, I rest my case.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Honorable colleagues, my name is Diri Doye, representing the wonderful people of Yenagoa, Kolokuma, Opokuma Federal Constituency, and German from Bayelsa State. Mr. Speaker, having served part of my life in Maiduguri in Borno State, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I rise to support this motion as ably moved by the representative of the Chibok girls. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues,
please.
They mark 4 years.
Silence, please. Honorable members, please.
And if not for the honorable member bringing up this matter before us, we have all gone to sleep. We can't even remember. And that even those who have tried to do it by way of protest are now hounded and stopped by our own security agencies. Recently, the Bring Back Our Girls fame went to the fountain. They were denied permission to go there to remind us about these Chibok girls and remind the international community that our girls are still under captivity. Mr. Speaker, the number one thing in every government is the security of lives and property. Today, we have been told severally that Boko Haram has been decimated, Boko Haram has been technically defeated, Boko Haram has been this and that. And recently we heard about the kidnap of Dapchi girls. And Boko Haram was being celebrated while the girls were being returned to Dapchi. In fact, right in Dapchi, I am very sure that if you ask them for security, they will turn around and say it is Boko Haram that will secure them, and not our own security agencies anymore. Mr. Speaker, in supporting this motion, I'm of the view, Mr. Speaker, that this house of the people, this house that you ably preside over, should now take this issue more seriously, and not only on today to mark them. This house should set up a committee on Boko Haram, a committee that will interface with the executive arm of government. This house should invite all the heads of security agencies.
Silence, please. Order. Order, honorable members, order, please. Please. Please, honorable members, silence,
This
please.
House should invite all the heads of security agencies to tell Nigerians the truth about the Chibok girls and the remaining Dapchi girl, Leah Sharibu. Mr. Speaker, I disagree that this government has done too much. No. We have had situations in Israel. We read about the 90 minutes at Entebbe. If it means using force to release our girls, why can't we have another 90 minutes in Nigeria? Mr. Speaker, it is high time we sit up as representatives of the people. We cannot continue to sit down here and every day in the news, there are killings going on from one state to the other, and every day in the news, it is insecurity, to the point that, Mr. Speaker, Nigerians are afraid of their own shadows. And that is not what the change government promised Nigerians.
Honorable Kaugama, please. Honorable Rabiu
Mr. Speaker,
Kaugama. Honorable
it is on this
Dawaki,
note
please.
that I reiterate that this House should set up a committee on the Chibok girls that are still there and the remaining one Dapchi girl, Lee Sharibu, so that Nigerians will know that we are not just sitting down here, but we are here representing their interest. Thank you.
Toby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Toby Okechukwu. I represent an area of Woji River Federal Constituency. I'm from Enugu State. Mr. Speaker, my heart bleeds each time we talk about Chibok girls. Honorable Ashebi, who moved this motion, is the strong member and the only member of the House Committee on Works, which I chair. So I have a particular interest, and she has manifested in every form and manner the hurt that goes through her with regard to the Chibok girls. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, this is the 4th year that our girls have been under this perdition. And unfortunately, the agencies, as pointed by Osai, that are supposed to superintend the rescue of these girls are busy quarreling among themselves. As a matter of fact, there are different...
Please, silence, please.
Mr.
Please,
Speaker,
honorable members, silence, please.
Mr. Speaker,
Honorable Kaugama, Honorable Dawaki, please take your seat. Please.
Mr. Speaker, as at last count,
Honorable Tubosun.
There have been several reasons.
Honorable Tubosun, please.
Mr. Speaker, as at last count, there have been so many reasons given for the Boko Haram problem. As a matter of fact, the Dapchi kidnappers are meant to be more friendly Boko Haram. Then the other ones are the ones that are hostile, that are not amenable to negotiation. But we are witnesses to the fact that some of the Chibok girls have been released. Whatever Midas touch that was deployed in ensuring the release of those ones, we should deploy them. Whatever Midas touch that was deployed in releasing the Dapchi girls, except one, should be deployed in releasing the remaining Dapchi girl, and at the same time releasing the remaining Chibok girls. But unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, so many reasons have been given, including the last reason being given for the problem of security in Nigeria, which was the fact that because of the people trained by Gaddafi, that is why we have Boko Haram. was the reason. The security chiefs have given different reasons, apart from the fact that they are quarreling. So which one do you believe? So if amongst all this the confusion, how can we ensure and trust that something will happen with regard to the release of the girls? Mr. Speaker, we cannot rest on our oars and believe that something will just suddenly happen. We first have to make sure that our security agencies are up to speed. We need to be properly briefed. We need to have an understanding of what actually is happening. If you see NIA, EFCC, SSS, all of them quarreling, how can you ensure that they are sharing intelligence? Are they sharing intelligence? They are not. And it's a huge problem. My understanding of organizational behavior is that when you have such dysfunction, your responsibility cannot be discharged. And in these things, it's self-evident that it is not happening so. So, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, it is quite unfortunate. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, one of the contractors that is doing work in the Ministry of Works had a security man guarding an expatriate shot and the expatriate kidnapped. That same yesterday, the mother of a member of Kano State House of Assembly was also kidnapped. A member of serving in Kano State House of Assembly, his mother was also kidnapped. And you talk about the killings in Benue and Nasarawa, and you talk about yesterday when 5 people were killed in Taraba because the military just withdrew. And when Danjuma talks about collaboration, nobody refers to it. So, Mr. Speaker, there is something wrong somewhere. And that promissory note on security has not, we've gone to the bank and it is empty. It is blank. We cannot draw cash on it. That promissory note on security is gone. So it is not something that we can depend on or rely on. And understandably, Mr. President should be worried about security and the economy, which when discussing with Mrs. May, he said that that was what is concerned. But unfortunately, the declaration betrays that, that aspiration and that understanding. So we must be minded in the direction and completely focused like a laser on what is the problem of this country. We must not make mistakes. So I share my sympathy with our girls, particularly the member representing Chibok. When you have 100 and something of your constituents and young ones at that, deprived of the opportunity of good living, a right of good living, you can understand how it hurts. And Mr. Speaker, reliably, we read yesterday that is only 15 of the girls that are remaining. From one Yakasai, Sakida. That was what I'm reading. More than the fact of the rescue, we need to be brought up to speed with regard to the status of the girls. As simple as that. If we are getting that kind of information, we need to be brought up to speed. And it's the responsibility of the agencies to give us that information, Mr. Speaker. So this House have to be responsive. We are not doing any other person's job if we say the executive and these agencies should give us account of what is happening with regard to security. It's our job, so we are not out of scope. And I support completely the motion, and we should make sure it is implemented to the letter. Thank you very much.
Honorable Sadiq.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Speaker. My name is Sadiq Ibrahim. I represent Fufore Song Federal Constituency from Adamawa State, and Mr. Speaker, obviously from the northeast part of Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, I will confine myself to the prayers of the mover of this motion. I'm not obliged to embark on any voyage of discovery. if we were to embark on voyage of discovery, we would have to start from where we started. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, it was militancy. Then it became IPOB and Biafra. Then it became Boko Haram and kidnapping. Then it became herdsmen and farmers clashes. There is no politics about this. Let us not politicize this. We in the Northeast, we feel it and we know it. We are Nigerians, we cry, any one of us is touched. The mover of this motion had two prayers. One, to pressurize the federal government to intensify efforts in finding the missing girls that are still at large, including what many people do not know, that Leah is from my state. And Adamawa is more briefed than Yobe, Borno, and any other state in this country for not having that girl back. She's our daughter in Adamawa state, and we feel it. The second prayer, Mr. Speaker, of the mover of this motion is to continue to search and interface with the insurgents with a view to negotiating with them so that we may be lucky to get them returned as the deputy girls have been returned. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, some of us in Northeast, we love your sympathy. The parents of these girls that are still at large, they are Nigerians, they have feelings the same way we feel for our children. That's how they feel. Let us continue to pray that these girls are still alive. From the reports I have read being from the Northeast, Mr. Speaker, the numerous air raids on Sambisa have killed so many insurgents, including these girls. Some of them have died of natural causes. Some of them have died of diseases. Therefore, nobody in this country can tell you how many remaining girls are alive today. And I don't want to believe that the government is deliberately not wanting to negotiate with Boko Haram with a view to not bringing them back. All of us, including our state governors in Northeast, we are concerned and we have been meeting, even some of us that are members of the National Assembly from this zone, we are concerned, we are meeting that this incident be unraveled. Therefore, in my conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I would like to align myself with the prayers of the mover of the motion that we urge the federal government to intensify efforts in bringing these girls back and to also urge the government to negotiate if there is anybody to negotiate with a view to releasing the girls. My heart goes to everybody here that spoke for us in the Northeast and those who continue to speak. But embarking on voyage of discovery after we have finished militancy, finished IPOB, nobody should think that this particular debacle that we are in cannot be finished. It will be finished, and we should also praise our security agencies because they too have lives and they do not have the equipment to fight the Boko Haram that we all know. Therefore, everybody should be praised that put in this effort, including everybody here that spoke. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
We've taken a long time debating this matter, close to an hour now. Okay, the last person was Honorable Heidi Gyang. They will take intervention from the whip and DS will round up.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. I remain Representative Heidi Gyang, member representing Barikin Ladirium Federal Constituency. I'm from Plateau State. Mr. Speaker, I rise to lend my voice to this very pathetic motion that has been raised by our dear sister from Chibok. And to say that the abduction saga of the
Honorable Osai, Nicholas Osai, please, can you resume your seat?
Has attracted nationwide condemnation and has clearly brought out the state of insecurity in our nation. As the nation marks 4 years since the Chibok girls were abducted, 112 of them are still in captivity, Mr. Speaker. And reports in the media has it that very few of them may still be alive. And this is very, very disturbing, and therefore calls for expeditious action by the security and government to secure and also enforce the release of the remaining girls. Mr. Speaker, this anniversary is also an opportunity to reflect on the only Dapchi girl still languishing in captivity in the person of Leah Charibo. Leah is still being held captive in clear violation of her right of freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, as enshrined in Section 38 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. Mr. Speaker, I want to say, as a parliament, we must resist any conduct that erodes the rights of citizens, especially the right to conscience, freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. The very reason for which Leah Charibo is still being held in captivity. Any nation that will not allow its citizens to exercise their fundamental rights is a nation that is heading into destruction. And that right, especially as regards to this, our daughter that is still in captivity, we want to appeal to government to speedily, along with the remaining Chibok girls, take expeditious action to secure the release of Leah Charibo and the remaining 112 Chibok girls. That is my support for this motion, and also to further buttress the submission that has been made by our colleagues on this very matter. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and honorable colleagues.
Whip.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My honorable colleagues, I am Honorable Alassane Ado Dogwa. I represent Dogwa to the Wada Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I am from Kano State. Mr. Speaker, let me say very categorically that no one of us here would by any means stand against the motion on the floor. Mr. Speaker, I want to also recall that in several sessions of this House, we have passed very persuasive and ambitious motions and passed resolutions against this kind of insecurity in the land, specifically the issue to do with the Chibok girls. Mr. Speaker, I also rise today to reinstate our collective position in fighting not only Boko Haram, but every sense of insurgency in this country is something that we should not accept, and we must stand united and fight against it. Mr. Speaker, just like the mover of the motion has mentioned, it is also not enough. No matter what has been done so far, it is not enough to just keep quiet when we still have others in captivity. It is therefore my view and my opinion that we must stand by the mover of the motion, who is directly the representative of these people in captivity, the Chibok girls. But Mr. Speaker, while I said so, that we have to stand by her, we have to stand by her people, stand by her constituency. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I only feel it is only fair if we can as well commend what the government has done so far in trying to recover the Chibok girls and also stop captivity and stop every other form of violence and insurgency in this country. Mr. Speaker, I understand the fact that when you talk of a government, it's not only the executive arm of government that you can call government, but actually the legislature and by extension, the judiciary is also part of government. I believe, like Honorable Osai has mentioned, we have been doing our own bit. And I also want to believe that we have not done our bit enough as well. The motion or the mover of the motion that says we should continue to pressurize government to do something about the remaining people in captivity and also do something about the last lady that is still in captivity, about the Dapchi girls, is something that is a welcome idea. But I still want to insist to tell this floor, to tell the members of this floor, and to tell Nigerians that nobody is in doubt of the fact that Nigeria's government under the leadership of Muhammadu Buhari is doing the best it could do to secure this nation and the lives of our people, which is also the primary responsibility of government. Mr. Speaker, I want to recall that these people in captivity, especially the Chibok girls, were captured for about 4 years now. And I want to believe they were captured at a time that was different from Buhari's administration. But so far, through Buhari administration, we have succeeded in securing over 100 of them back to their families. And government is still doing the best it could do to secure the remaining ones. The Dapchi issue, for instance, in less than a week, Mr. President, unprecedentedly, unlike other past presidents, reported personally to Dapchi, identified and condoled, sympathized with families and parents of the abducted Dapchi girls. Mr. Speaker, I want to believe if you want more from government in terms of doing its responsibility, we must also identify by some of these achievements by the government by way of recovering and fighting insurgency. Just recently, Mr. Speaker, the government, in collaboration with the state governors, has ordered release of significant and huge funds to the military in order to continue to fight insurgency. Mr. Speaker, this is a welcome idea, and I think the House and an institution must be able to respect this commitment of government to fight insurgency, which I believe step by step we shall be able to conquer, and Nigeria will now be a safe land for each and every one of us to live. Mr. Speaker, I want to also put clearly that in the past, all of us were in serious threat. We could not go to mosques. Some of us could not go to churches safely. People were sleeping with one eye open. Everybody, everywhere in the country was under restlessness. Mr. Speaker, I want to believe by the commitment of this government and by the able leadership of Muhammadu Buhari, we have succeeded in bringing some sense of security and some sense of comfort in the country. But like I said, I also want to join the mover of the motion to still urge the government to continue to do more. And we can only be fair if we can recognize and acknowledge what the government is doing, and we ask them to do more. And those of us that are still serving under this institution as an arm of government should also continue to do the best we can do so that our country can be secured, the properties and lives of people can also be protected, which is, of course, is the primary responsibility of every government in place, like the one we have. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you. Honorable colleagues, I thank you. Honorable Osai, please be guided. You must acknowledge what the government is doing while you urge government to do more. And that's my submission, sir.
This will round up.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. My name is Lasun Yusuf. I represent Irepodu, Oloruda Orodo Osogbo Federal Constituency. I'm from the state of Osun. First and foremost, I want to support and align myself with the position of the mover of the motion. And of course, one is bound to appreciate the fact that in Yoruba language, there is a proverb that says, when one's child is dead, it's better than one's child missing, because you know your child is dead and is buried, and you will now face God to replace. But when your child is missing, you are confused. You wouldn't know what to do. So a missing child will create an open wound that will be festering every second of one's life. And so because of that, it has become very, very important that we should be able to very quickly be able to say something concrete about the remaining girls that we have not been able to trace. So having said that, so I align myself. And of course, I wouldn't have even stood up at all to contribute to this motion if not because of the dimension that was brought into it by Honorable Osai and my very good, the two of them are my good friend, Osai and Toby. they now veer off and went into things that are already with us before the missing girls. And so, what I would advise all of us is that nations begin to develop when you are able to break down those things that are affecting you in a manner that will make you more focused. We have had the opportunity of a civil war in Nigeria, and we didn't develop from that. We very quickly got very close to what we can be called famine, and we are not able to develop from it. Probably the issue of Boko Haram, herders and farmers, and this case of Dapchi and Chibok girls are the ones that are going to gear us up to begin to develop. And in my own opinion, the best statement I've heard from Mr. President is the one he made yesterday. It shows that the man is focused to say that what he's concerned about now is security and economy. That means the man has looked at Nigeria in entirety, and he has discovered that those are the two most important things he must face. And when you begin to talk like that, that means you are a serious-minded person. Because other presidents can come and begin to model everything up and begin to say there are so many factors that are affecting Nigeria. But the man has come out openly to say two most important things are dear to him now: economy and security. Once you are the head of an organization in a country like that, and you are able to reduce your problem to issues that are germane and fundamental, then that means the man is ready to solve the problem. We know we are going to get there. We know we are going, one way or the other, we are going to get there. And I'm happy that the mover of the motion herself mentioned that the issue of this Chibok girl happened 4 years ago. And like Ado said, 181 were released at once. So let us, as part of government, like I said again, the pressure the prayer is asking for is part of the pressure we are already putting on the government and by ourselves, by talking about it. So, Mr. Speaker, we have to thank the mover of the motion for raising the motion again. And we have to thank people who believe that the executive arm of government is not doing enough. But we are only reminding them that that is the reason why democratic experience is the best experience. When you go to poll every 4 years to ask for a new mandate, because a very single term of 4 years, that is wrongly used will affect at least minimally 2 generations in any country. That's why it is important that we should pay attention at the end of every 4 years when politicians go back to election to ask for people's mandate. Every 4 years is important because it will affect some other generation. And I will round up by reminding all of us that when we started this experience in 1998, children born in 1998, some of them are already out of the university. And it means by August, when we be going for election, this year in some few places in Ondo and Ekiti by July, in Osun by September, in February next year. Children born in 1998, when we started this experience, we go to election. It means our actions and inactions of the last 20 years have already affected them. Some of them don't even know what is called a peaceful society. Because you either talk about Boko Haram or militancy or kidnapper or IPOP or Odua or something. So they don't know. But I know that we are improving because one way or the other we'll get ourselves sorted out one day. Let us just begin to map those areas that we have been able to survive, those areas that we have been able to solve. So, Mr. Speaker, we pray that those girls, particularly those of them that are still alive, we pray that they will return to us safely. And Lee Sharibu, people call her Leah. I know it's Lee. The proper English pronunciation is Lee Sharibu. Yes, any country that is hammering too much on religion, like Dian said, might probably be doomed. So it is high time we started by making sure that what is most important in our life is humanity itself. When we begin to respect our humanity, then we begin to develop. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Honorable Zoro, your amendment, quickly.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, my dear colleagues. Again, Representative Sani Zoro. I represent Gumel, Gagarawa, Suletan, Karkar, and Megatari in Jigawa State. Honorable Speaker, I move that the House Committee on IDPs investigates the extent of funds collected under the Safe Schools initiative led by the Honorable Gordon Brown, the former British Prime Minister, for the purpose of securing schools in the Northeast, and whether or not the funds have been deployed for the purpose for which they were collected in conformity with sections 88 and 89 of our standing order, our standing rules. I so move, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Nebe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues. I'm Honorable Anayon Nebe, representing the people of Oka North and Oka South Federal Constitution of Anambra State. I stand to move support to second the motion ably moved by Representative Sani Zoro. I so second.
I think the motion is simple. The amendment he's proposing is that someone raised this issue of Safe School Initiative, and he's saying the money was voted for that, so there's need for House to inquire into what that money was used for, in view of the fact that the schools are not even safe. Chairman, Rules and Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think we've gone down this road before. Okay, Jeff, and I represent the good people of Buruku from Benue State. We've gone down this road before. This is an issue that should come on a standalone motion so that we debate it and get to the root of the matter before coming to a resolution. We can't just slip it in a motion of this nature. So my opinion is that it's not the kind of resolution that we should arrive at based on the arguments that have gone on the floor here. It's slightly different.
Okay, Honorable Sani Zoro, can we have a motion on that?
Honorable Speaker, I came through an amendment to the motion, which I have already sent to you. And it was with your permission that I moved to amend. And like you properly explained, it was based on information that we can all remember. Immediately after the abduction of the Chibok girls, there was an effort by the international community under the leadership of Mr. Gordon Brown, and it was called Safe Schools Initiative. And the Safe Schools Initiative reportedly collected millions of pounds sterling in order to secure physically schools in the Northeast. And some of the activities that the funds were to be used for include perimeter fencing, deployment of CCTV cameras, recruitment, training and deployment of civilian security that will guard those schools, provision of generators.
Honorable Sani Zoro, the matter is very simple. If you look at the subject matter of the motion, is called on the federal government to urgently rescue remaining Chibok school girls in captivity. That is the subject matter of the motion. So what you're introducing is totally unrelated with the subject matter of the motion. We're talking about rescuing the remaining Chibok girls that are in captivity. What you are discussing now is self-school initiative, which is a different subject matter. And I understand that you can relate it somehow, but it's totally unrelated with the subject matter of the motion for today. So this can be a stand-alone motion that will be debated on its merit, and then the House can now come to a conclusion on that. So that is why I'm saying that we should have a motion, a separate motion on how safe are these schools. That's a different subject matter, but today's subject matter is how do we ensure that the remaining Chibok girls are rescued. So, so we may wish to have a motion on that, and we can take it on its merits. Honorable Doe Diri, your amendment, please, quickly.
Yes.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues. My amendment was hinged on the fact that we need, at this time, to have access to what is going on about the release of these girls. And therefore, this House should set up an ad hoc committee on Chibok girls and the only Dapchi girl. Thank you.
Chairman, Rules and Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Okay, Jeff, I represent the good people of Buruku from Benue State. I'm sorry again, I think, you see, this House has set up, this House has set up two powerful ad hoc committees on issues of security. One headed by the DS, the other headed by the Chief Whip. I mean, so any issue dealing with security should be subsumed under this. Otherwise, you begin to set up another committee on the Benue killings, on the Plateau killing, on the, we shouldn't be doing that. I think this committee can, those two committees can adequately handle that issue that is raising, unless he wants to head the committee on.
Osai, which one are you seconding? His position or?
Because his position is just verbal. That ad hoc committee set up before by this Honorable House has a link to what we are discussing today. It's on that ground, Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues, I second the motion heavily moved by my colleague.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor of the motion as amended say aye. Those against it say nay. The ayes have it. Order amendments, but it's been taken. Okay. It's unfortunate. I didn't see it before then. I thought we had only 2 amendments, and it's been taken. Honorable colleagues, just a minute. We still have one point of order to be raised by Zoro, and then if you have any matter you can take. I just wanted to say in relation to this motion that these are no doubt perilous times, but in view of the fact that the government is doing its best to ensure that we have security in this country, there's need for our security agencies to remain vigilant and do all within their powers to ensure that we don't mark another anniversary of the kidnap of Chibok girls without these girls being reunited with their families. And it doesn't matter how you look at it. I concede to our permanent acting leader who has educated us about the difficulties involved in rescuing some of these girls that are still in captivity. But the fact remains that as a government, both the legislature, executive, and judiciary were not put into this place or into our positions to do things that are easy. And the very fact that it's difficult, that is why we should set out to even accomplish it, because that is what brings out our word. And when it comes to human lives, they can't be part success. It's either you succeed wholly or you have done nothing. And as far as I'm concerned, this goes to all of us as a government, judiciary, legislature, and the executive. For as long as the last surviving girl has not been reunited with her family, the truth is that we haven't done anything. And once we begin to feel the sense of entitlement to celebrate that we have achieved something, it means that we can abandon our responsibility to ensure that each and every surviving Chibok girl or the Dapchi girl that is remaining in captivity is rescued. I therefore join honorable members in calling on the executive, particularly the arm of government that solidly controls the coercive arm of the state, to do all within its powers to ensure that next year we will be celebrating the liberation of all girls in captivity, as against taking motions and motions where we have to pour our hearts out because of the fact that our girls are still in captivity. So that is my take on that motion. I now call on Honorable Zoro to move his point of order.
Silence, please. Order. Honorable members, order, please. Honorable Gudaji. Honorable Golu. Honorable Gudaji Kazaure, please resume your seat. You are welcome back. Please.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, my honorable colleagues. I rise to seek for the leave of this honorable House to move for this motion of urgent public importance under Order 8, Rule 4, that calls for the rebasement of the employment formula into MDAs so that we will have equitable distribution of employment opportunities across Nigeria as provided for in the relevant sections of the Constitution, especially Chapter 2, as well as the provision of the federal character. My dear colleagues, I believe that this motion is on the basis of ethical, moral, and political correctness. I therefore seek the indulgence of this House, first of all, to suspend our rules, and secondly, to entertain this motion. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Any seconder first limb of the motion? Honorable Wayo.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I am Honorable Benjamin Yorembe Wayo. I represent the good people of Kwande Bushongo Federal Constituency. I am from Benue State.
Timothy
Honorable colleagues, I stand up to second the motion that suspended in order to take this motion as a motion of urgent public importance. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it. Second limb of the motion, that will suspend our rules to enable him take it. Honorable EJ.
My right honorable speaker and dear colleagues, I remain Honorable EJ Akwanyima, representing the good people of Ego Ikubaka Federal Constituency. I rise to second motion, second leg of the motion, ably moved by my honorable colleagues, my senior colleagues, Honorable Zoro. I so move.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it. Honorable Zoro, you can now move your motion.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, my honorable colleagues. Once more, I'm representing Sani Zoro from Jigawa State, and I represent Gumel Gagarawa Sule as well as Megatari Federal Constituency. Honorable Speaker, need for rebasing the employment formula into federal MDS using local governments as a base in compliance with federal character provisions. Whereas the House is aware of various recruitment and replacement exercises into ministries, departments, and agencies.
Silence, please.
Government.
Please, honorable members, silence, please.
Using states instead of local government structures as the prevailing formula and policy for such recruitments. Further aware of the provisions of the Federal Character Commission, among which are to give effect to the provisions of Section 14, subsection 3 and 4 of Chapter 1, Part 2 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, worried that the numerous provisions of Sections 8, subsection 1, A to D, 3 and 9 of the second schedule, Part 2 of 14, 3 and 4 of the Constitution are largely observed in the breach by extra ministerial departments, parastatals,
Prestige, Honorable Prestige,
of the federal government.
Honorable Golu, please.
Resolves as follows: that henceforth mass recruitment into federal ministries, departments and agencies of the federal government should be rebased along our country's local government structure as the third tier of government, and as provided for in parts 1 and 2, first schedule of the Constitution, to promote a sense of belonging for all Nigerians through equitable distribution of employment opportunities. And that the House Committee on Federal Character and Legislative Compliance, respectively, shall ensure full enforcement, monitoring, and quarterly reporting to the House on this resolution. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Any seconder?
Silence, please. Silence, please, honorable members, please.
Who is it, Mary? Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues. Engineer Solomon Maren is my name, and I represent the very good people of Mangu Bokos Federal Constituency. I'm from the home of peace and tourism. I rise to second the motion ably moved by my colleague. I so second, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Honorable Zoro, 2 minutes, but you may wish to be more audible because members are saying they can't hear you well.
Honorable Speaker, I suspect that the public address system may be faulty, but I will try and adjust. Honorable Speaker, my dear colleagues, I believe this has been a recurring issue because I remember sometime last year when recruitment exercise into the Nigerian police force was ongoing, a member raised an issue here and suggested that the best formula for recruitment to ensure equitable distribution of opportunities should be based on local government structures. I'm not reinventing the wheel, therefore, because I am standing on that by making references to at least 2 sections of the Constitution that will validate this argument. And, Honorable Speaker, my dear colleagues, with your permission, I want to cite these parts of the Constitution. One is the Fundamental Objectives and Directive Principles of State Policy, Chapter 2 of the Constitution. And it says, under Section 3, the composition of the government of the Federation or any of its agencies, and the conduct of its affairs shall be carried out in such a manner as to reflect the federal character of Nigeria and the need to promote national unity, and also to command national loyalty, thereby ensuring that there shall be, and this is very important, there shall be no predominance of persons from a few states or from a few ethnic or other sectional groups in the government or in any of its agencies. Now, to give effect to this provision, I also want to draw the attention of this Honorable House to section number 8, subsection 1 of the Constitution on Federal Character Commission. This is the provision of the Federal Character Commission. And it says, Mr. Speaker, in giving effect to the provisions of section 14, 3 and 4 of this Constitution, the Commission, that is the Federal Character Commission, shall have power to A, work out an equitable formula subject to the approval of the National Assembly, which means that the National Assembly has power on this matter, for the distribution of all cadres of posts, which means that it's not restricted in the public service of the Federation and of the states and armed forces of the Federation, the Nigerian Police Force and other government security agencies, government-owned companies and parastatals of the states. And then A, it says this is to promote, monitor and enforce compliance with the principles of proportional sharing. And I am happy that here we are the aggregate proportional representatives of the Nigerian people. Now, there are other sections, but in mentioning these 2 particular references to the Constitution, the Honorable Speaker, my dear colleagues, I want to say that it is evident but sad that when you look at the staff disposition of many of our MDAs, they are nothing but pockets of clannish and ethnic entities, wherein when you have ministers or chief executives of parastatals from all parts of the country, north, south, and wherever, you discover that the recruitment policy is about, first of all, populating such MDAs with their kins and kings. This is unfortunate because you don't build a nation that way, and is unconstitutional based on these two references that I have cited. Honorable Speaker, my dear colleagues, I just want to implore you to remember that we have the constitutional mandate to intervene in this matter, as I have quoted. And in my own opinion, the best way to go about this is by way of rebasing the employment formula into federal agencies based on local government structure, which is the third tier of government. Right now, recruitment exercises are going on in major paramilitary agencies of government and in other MDAs. I am concerned because my own constituency has been largely shortchanged. You cannot believe that I know of an agency that has just recruited thousands of people, but 2 of my 4 local governments, there was no employment of any kind. And we have people who are sufficiently qualified. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, I can assure you that this motion is on ethical, moral, as well as political reasons. But more importantly, on the basis of political correctness, I invite you to endorse this motion so that once and for all, we will have intervened to ensure equitable distribution as well as justice in the employment formula into federal agencies. Thank you very much.
Honorable Chika.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues. I'm Abubakar Chika Adamu. I represent Shiroro, Rafimu and Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I am from Niger State. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, absolutely I'm in tandem with the motion as ably presented by my dear friend and brother, Honorable Sani Zoro. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, what happened today in public service in terms of employment, we see ethnicity, we see religion, we see tribalism, and whatever kind of sentiments is being applied in terms of employing people in public service. People use that with impunity. If one is from Section A, Section B, Section C, or State A, State B, State C, and even when you go down within the state, he's from one tribe or one section of the state, you see if he's heading every organization in this nation, the employment is tilted towards that sentiment he represents. Mr. Speaker, this cannot do us well. If there is a federal institution in Lagos, in Kano, irrespective of what we say the catchment area, there is a need to have widespread in terms of employment. But here we are, you go to a particular institution in a state where you have 2,000 employees. You realize almost 1,800 emerge from that state. And by the time you continue to study the headship of those institutions, even if they are from those states, you realize if he is from Zone A or local government A, you realize when he is heading that institution, you will find a lot of his people are there. When he's employing 100 at during his tenure, you will realize 70 number of those he employed are from his local government. This should not be acceptable, Mr. Speaker. All we need to do is to ensure that even if it is by way of a law, to change this motion to a law that a presentation not only in the Federal Character Commission, but also same presentation should be approved by a committee of National Assembly. I think that will be what will be acceptable. Because sometimes, in a kangaroo way, you realize agencies will make submission to the Committee on Federal Character, saying that we want to employ so-so number, and it will be approved for them without referring to the Chamber of National Assembly as it is said, or the Committee of the National Assembly as it is said by the Constitution. and therefore it will be approved for them, and employment will be tilted towards the sentiment of the leadership of that institution. That should not be acceptable by Mr. Speaker. That should be changed, and I recommend, Mr. Speaker, this should not only stand as a motion. I went to urge that the presenter of the motion should come by a way of a bill to enforce it, as he said that henceforth employment should be through the local government level. I think by the time we have it as a law, no impunity will be played again. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, my dear colleague. I hope we will support this motion so that the mover, Honorable Sani Zoro, will be able to transmit it from a motion to a law in this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, my dear colleagues.
Those that have spoken will not be recognized to speak on this motion. So if you know that you've spoken, better put your hands down. We're still on preliminaries. We have not even gone to the main business of the day. And this is a straightforward motion, so I recognize two more and then we move on. Honorable Raji.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My name is Wali Raji. I represent a federal constituency of Lagos State. I'm happy that Honorable Soro has brought up this motion today under matter of urgent national importance. It will be recalled that a similar motion was cleared by Mr. Speaker about 2 months ago for me for presentation in the House, but it got stopped in the Rules and Business Committee. You know, now it is most unfortunate that what is happening in Nigeria today is institutionalization of nepotism, and this is against the letters and spirit of the Nigerian Constitution. That I'm a member of the Committee on Federal Character. This is a recurring issue on a daily basis, that when you look at the nominal role of any agency, many of the agencies of government, you know, it is not difficult for you to know the local government or the ethnic group that the head of such institutions comes from. Because in most cases, it's always shown that the people from the local government of the chief executive officers of these agencies are unduly favored in recruitment. And it is on this basis that I wholeheartedly support this motion, such that we carry out a thorough investigation into the recruitment, you know, into the various MPAs of government.
Honorable
so,
Toby
Mr. Speaker, I therefore want to commend the mover of this motion, and I declare my support for the motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Chinda. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues. Kingsley Chinda, I represent Toby Abo Federal Constituency. I'm an Igore man from River State. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity. I stand to support this motion as moved by our colleague, and I would also want to put it on record, Mr. Speaker. You see,
Honorable EJ, please.
Honorable Osai, while contributing to a motion,
Honorable Kamale,
reminded us that when the head of a fish is bad,
Honorable Eukeria, please,
that it will affect the entire body. Today in our country, if we're talking about breach of section 14 subsection 3, it started from the head. If you look at the security setup in Nigeria today, it's a clear breach of the Constitution. Everybody has talked about it. It is in the social media, it is in the print media. Nigerians have complained and criticized. In fact, people have even litigated over it. What do you have? An irresponsible government. An irresponsive government. A government that cares less about the feelings of the people. Today, the parliament is talking about the breach of that same section of the Constitution, which of course is an impeachable offense. I have not seen anywhere, let anybody cite an example, anywhere in the world
where the entire security apparatus, in a security council meeting, you have 99% from the same section of the country. And the provision of the constitution is so clear. If that is taking place and nobody is saying anything, why would heads of agencies and other parastatals of government not be impenious? They will follow suit. If I have the opportunity to be head of an agency and the head is doing that, you expect that I will not employ my people? I will put 100% Ikwere men there. Because that is the norm. If you don't do it, you look stupid. So let us begin the correction from the head. Once we get it right at that point, I believe that every other person will follow suit. But as long as that remains, it is difficult for us to start from the bottom to correct it. So let's get to the root of it. Let us begin to rule this country and govern in line with our laws. We preach rule of law, but we don't practice it. So my dear colleagues, while supporting this motion, but let us look at the root of the problem and we begin to root it out. Let the chief executive, the manager of the company called Nigeria, let him begin to comply with section 14, subsection 3 of our constitution. Once that is done, of course we always talk about body language. Every other head of agency will see the body language of Mr. President and follow suit. But as long as that is not done, it is difficult, almost impossible, for us to correct the other heads of MDAs. I therefore support this motion and urge us to take this issue, which is a constitutional breach, very seriously, because that is the essence of our being elected to represent our people, and that is why we are seated here as members of these green chambers. Thank you, my dear colleagues.
Honorable Prince Mike, Honorable Jagawade, and leader will round up.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Mike Omogbe. I represent the people of Okitipupa in the Federal Constituency. I'm from Ondo State. This motion, Mr. Speaker, could not have come at a better time. But there is a popular saying that we cannot give what we do not have. To be able to fulfill what this motion intends to correct, the Federal Character Commission itself, as is presently constituted, Mr. Speaker, need to be adjusted. In the history of this country, it has always been that the chairman of the Federal Character either comes from the south and the secretary will be from the north, vice versa. Today, the Federal Character Commission, Mr. Speaker, as present constituted, is that both the chairman and the secretary of that commission are from northeast. The chairman of the Federal Character Commission today is from Medugu, is from Bono, whereas the secretary is from Taraba. This has never happened in the history of this country. Sometimes ago, there was a serious article about this in newspapers. One would have expected that Mr. President would have made that amend. So my contribution to this debate, Mr. Speaker, is that for us to make correction at all, Mr. President must be prevailed upon to correct the anomaly that is presently existing in the Federal Character Commission. This chairman should either be in the north, the secretary from the south, or the secretary from the south, the chairman from the north. But to appoint both the chairman and the secretary from northeast, it is unacceptable and it's a negation of the provision of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you very much. That is my contribution.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, thank you very much for this golden opportunity. I rise, Mr. Speaker, to contribute positively to this very nice motion. Mr. Speaker, I think the problem did not just start with this administration. This problem of tribalism, religionism, whatever the seems, is in the DNA of this, of Nigerians. So I'm not as much as I'm not supporting the administration in many ways, but the fact must be stated clear. Mr. Speaker, I will state the case and the solution. Number one, Mr. Speaker, under my agency in last administration, you heard about the immigration saga, 2000 immigration saga, which was brought to your notice and you minuted to me to handle the matter. Out of 2,000 immigration officers that were deployed that recruited that time. 500 were from one local government. And that local government is not in the north. Because somebody happened to be the chairman. 2,000 out of 2,000 for the country.
Osai, what is your point of order?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues. My point of order is order 9, sub rule 7, Mr. Speaker. It shall be out of order to use offensive and insulting language of members of this House. The corruption DNA is not in my body. I'm not in my system. I'm not in any members of this House. For a member to raise issue that corruption is in our MDA. DNA. Corruption and nepotism is in our DNA. Mr. Speaker, I think that issue should not be recorded on the history of the 8th Assembly, because which I'm part of it. Correct. Mr. Speaker, I urge my fellow colleagues to withdraw that statement, because my DNA has not been tested.
Silence,
to know whether there's corruption in it. On nepotism.
Are we actually debating corruption? I don't know how corruption flew into the debate.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not even sure whether Osai is properly dressed.
Hey, Honorable Jagawa, please clarify what you said. So for the purpose of the record and so that Osai is properly guided.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure if Osai is properly dressed as he is. Please, it shall be out of order for a member to appear with an improper dressing mode.
Mr. Speaker.
No, it's not the way your people dress. It's the way our rules provide. If you are wearing native, then you will have to have a cap. You don't have. And you are fond of raising point of orders. So at this point, I think I may ask the whip to do the needful.
Okay. The sergeant at arms should match him out, please.
Okay, whip.
Sir.
So,
sir, by your leave, I will ask the sergeant at arms to march Osai out of this chamber.
For today, you may exercise mercy, but thou shalt warn them, including the leader of the house.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The point I'm trying to put across, Mr. Speaker, is that the issue of tribalism cut across this nation, cut across every tribe. And I cited an example, even in the last administration, 2,000 immigration officers were recruited, 500 of them were from one local government. So for us to tackle this problem, Mr. Speaker, we have to look at ourselves holistically. The problem did not start with this administration, and it may not stop from this administration. Mr. Speaker, for us to tackle this improperly, in my opinion, we need to give a biting teeth to the law, or to the act establishing federal character. We need to give a backing. We have to put teeth and mend it and make sure whoever goes against this these are the consequences that will follow. And Mr. Speaker, there are issues attached. The federal commissioners too are not helping matters. By the time they are giving this allocation according to state, some state, because of some reasons, will move their own for personal benefit to other states. So this thing needs to be looked upon holistically. So it's not the issue of Northeast. I agree. There is chairman and the secretary should come from the same zone. I agree. But it didn't start from this administration, Mr. Speaker. So once we want to look into it, we have to look at the act and specify everything, since everything in Nigeria, we have to make a law to address it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Leader, please round up so that we can move on as fast as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, mine is just going to take 30 seconds. Mr. Speaker, I want to align with Honorable Toby and Honorable Osai and determination to make sure that we follow our provisions of federal character. There's a reason why that provision is in the Constitution. It's almost akin to the affirmative action in the United States. But I believe that when they make their submissions, they should always make it wholesale and not target particular government. And just to buttress, and that's the point I'm trying to make, Honorable Osai talked about the importance of the security apparatus and why should they be concentrated in one ethnic group or one section of the country. And I agree with that. But however, just as important, Mr. Speaker, is the finance of a country, the finance and the economy of a country, if not as more important. But I recollect very vividly that in the past regime, the CBN governor was from a particular section of the country. The finance minister was from a section of the country. SEC DG was from a section of the country. The Sovereign Wealth Fund DG from a section of this country. The stock exchange, the petroleum, the economy of these hands was in one section of the country. So I believe that as we castigate whatever is going on now, just like he said, it is something that has been with us for a while. And therefore, whilst I identify with what they're saying, I believe that they should also look back and know that this correction should have come a long time ago. Thank you.
Silence, please. 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 Honorable Osai, please. Silence.
So I think I'll put a question, but I hope the leader shouldn't be understood as saying two wrongs will not make a right. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it. Honorable Karimi, your point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleagues, my name is Karimi Sunday. I'm from Kogi State. I represent Yagba West, Yagba East, Mapamuru Federal Constituency. I come under Order 8, Rule 5. Personal explanation. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues, some weeks ago, maybe 10 weeks ago, I brought a motion to this floor on the need to investigate spending on petroleum subsidy. And that matter was referred to a committee of finance and downstream. I'm not sure anything has been done to date. Mr. Speaker, my colleague, last week, the Minister of State for Finance made a public statement that over $1.4 trillion naira, 1.4 trillion naira has been expended on recovery of underpayment. He used trying to avoid the word subsidy. 1.4 trillion naira Nigerian fund has been spent without appropriation, without resort to parliament, and nothing has been done by this parliament. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria is very clear. Any spending without resort to parliament is not constitutional. And we ought to do something about this. We cannot continue to sit down and nothing is being done. We have to ask questions. This is an imputable offense. Thank you.
Sorry, please, because this is not a motion, so it's not subject to debate. I just wanted to find out from the chairman of the relevant committee, Honorable Babangida, Chairman of Finance. He's saying the matter was referred to your committee and nothing has been done about it. Where are we on this matter, please?
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, which matter? I'm just coming in from Ross. I just came in now.
Whip, it appears you are not disciplining your members very well. He just came in.
No, Honorable Babangida is one of the up and doing chairman of my zone, sir. So I think he's protected.
Okay, Honorable Babangida, please. Just take your seat small. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. The motion that was referred to us, we've already engaged the MPAs, and if you look at yesterday's daily trust and the nation, we have already advertised and fixed 26 for public hearing. Thank you.
So, Karim, you are satisfied that something is being done?
Yes, so, please. Honorable Karimi, please be guided.
Notices in the papers are notices to all of us. You ought to have realized that. So the matter is sorted out. There's no issue at all.
Please be guided.
It's sorted out.
Honorable Karimi, please be guided.
The publication is out there, and that is notice to you.
Be guided, Honorable Karimi.
Honorable Toby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, my name is Honorable Toby Okechukwu. I represent Aneri Ogu, Ojiriba Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Enugu State. Mr. Speaker, I want to come under Order 6, Rule 2, on a matter of privilege that has been breached, both as an individual representing my constituency and the breach of collective privilege of members of this parliament. Mr. Speaker, I come under the Legislative House's Powers and Privileges Act, and I also come under Section 4, the combined reading of Section 4 of the Constitution and Section 80 of the Constitution. These sections give us the responsibility of making laws for the Federation. Section 80 particularly authorizes Parliament. It gives it enabling powers to make appropriation laws, that expenditures with regard to monies accrued to the Federation account has to be done in the way and manner prescribed by National Assembly. That is the House and the Senate. Mr. Speaker, I have reliably learned that the federal government has breached by making this parliament completely unfunctional. Its scope of work as defined by the Constitution to prescribe expenditure by federal government has been taken out from us. We are in the know, Mr. Speaker, that the federal government has spent $460 million in payment to companies in the United States of America for the supply of military equipment without appropriation from this parliament. It's a complete breach of my privilege. Mr. Speaker, that is 165 billion naira. More importantly, it is 0.165 trillion naira.
Leader, your point of order.
Mr. Speaker, I think we all know what a privilege is. And we all know when our privileges have been breached. Mr. Speaker, he's talking about a right. He's talking about a constitutional matter. He's talking about a law that has been breached. We cannot conflate that with a privilege which is personal to us or which is collective. I agree with what he's saying. Don't get me wrong. The substance is something that needs to be looked at. But we must do things and follow process. He can bring this as a matter of priority. He can bring this as a matter of priority. This is a matter of urgent public importance. Or he can bring it on notice if he so chooses. But it's not a matter of privilege. And we must follow our rules. The meaning of privilege is common common sense.
Well, look at the definition of privilege in our rules. It's off.
Mr. Speaker, I think our standing orders is very clear on what the definition of privilege is. It said definition. That's Order 6, Rule 1. Privileges are the rights enjoyed by the House collectively and by the members of the House individually, conferred by the Legislative Powers and Privileges Act, Cap 112, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and other statutes, practices, precedents, usages, and customs. That is the definition of privilege. And as a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, I have anchored this on the Constitution, which is our ground norm. I have also anchored it on Legislative Houses and Privileges Act. It defines it. And more importantly, it is customary. And it is also the norm that the Parliament has responsibility to make appropriation. Yes. Anything outside it is a breach, both of right and privilege. And I believe that we should take this serious, because otherwise we have no business being here.
In order not to belabor this issue, really, I think, Honorable Toby, you can conclude your submission, because the rules are very clear. You can come under privilege, you can come under matter of urgent national importance. The truth is that privileges, all those rights given to you by statute, is your right as a member to sit and appropriate in the House. And it's the right of the National Assembly to appropriate. So once these things are breached, if it is actually true, then you have a grounds for complaint, and we must listen to you as a member of this House. So address the issue and let's hear you out.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to restate my privilege that has been breached and our collective privilege that has been breached. As a matter of fact, I would have said that Osai has laid the ground for this breach, because 1.4 trillion out of appropriation is key, but this one is more important. So we have to assume our responsibility. We are paid for it, and there is no way you can fight any mischief that is intended in expenditure. There is no way you can ensure value for money if you don't bring it to Parliament for scrutiny. That's the only way it is done. And the framers of this Constitution, they were mindful of some of this level of impunity that could occasion expenditure without appropriation. This is exclusive of the 1 billion that is said to have been approved. So, Mr. Speaker, this Parliament has to make sure that its duty, we are not going to be doing the duty of the executive. They should allow us to do our own. We cannot go and take the responsibility of the judiciary. So in our own, and for the benefit of Nigeria, so to ensure that there is value for money, that is why you scrutinize it and oversight it thereafter. And Parliament is a watchdog. So I believe strongly that, Mr. Speaker, we have to look into this, investigate the veracity of this, and make sure that not just that this does not happen and the serial breach does not continue to happen, it should be stopped forthwith. And we should be given explanation why this breach of the fundamental law of the country should be encouraged. So I move that we should look into it, investigate it, and find whether the breaches and how, to what extent this offends our Constitution. Thank you very much.
Okay, this is a very simple matter. I don't think it calls for debate or contribution from any section, more so that we don't have the hard fact. You are not seconding anything, it's a matter of privilege.
Yes, sir.
So we'll have to send it to a relevant committee for discovery, because these are very, very serious issues. And it's even good that you're talking about money being paid to the United States, which is the bastion of the democracy that we practice. So if it appears that money has been taken from the coffers of the federal government without authorization or explicit legislative consent, it can be regarded as stealing, really. And I don't think the US will accept stolen money or act on stolen money. So all we can do is to refer the matter to Committee on Finance, and let them query this. If it is actually true, then the Parliament must do what is needful, because I don't want a situation where we can be pitched against our oath of office, really. Chairman, Rules and Business, I don't know what you want to say about this.
You see, the danger of adopting the approach that we have is that under our rules, under Order 6, if you come under privilege, the only committee to which you can forward it is ethics and privileges. It can't be financed as being proposed. That is why it would have been tighter if the matter was taken as a motion.
So the matter goes to ethics and privileges.
Silence, please.
Honorable colleagues, this is an announcement. This is to inform members of the House Committee on Emergency and Disaster Preparedness that there is an emergency meeting by 2 p.m. as should 437 House of Reps wing. Thank you and God bless you as you come. Honorable Ali Issa Jesse, Deputy Chairman.
Please, Honorable Gudaji. Gudaji Kazaure, please. Please.
Honorable members, the first business of the day is presentation of 7 bills. I invite the clerk to read the short titles.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2018, first reading. Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2018, first reading. Federal Colleges of Education Act Amendment Bill 2018, first reading. Federal College of Agriculture Ijebu-Jesha Establishment Bill, first reading. Federal Polytechnic Koda Establishment Bill 2018, first reading. Federal Polytechnics Act Amendment Bill 2018, first reading. Federal Highways Act Amendment Bill 2018, first reading.
Please, honorable members, please. Honorable Garba Diso, please, can you go back to your seat? Or approach the whip. Gwale Konkosia, please, approach me.
Honorable colleagues, we proceed to take 2 announcements. Notification of membership of All Progressive Grand Alliance, APGA. I respectfully write to notify you of my resignation of the membership of the People's Democratic Party and joining the All Progressive Grand Alliance, APGA. It is common knowledge that the People's Democratic Party, on whose platform I was elected to the National Assembly, had been engulfed in several litigations, ensuring from factionalization of the party leadership at the national level. The factionalization of the party at the national level is the major reason for my resignation of the membership of the People's Democratic Party. The above is for your information and necessary action. Please accept, Mr. Speaker, the assurances of my highest regards. This announcement is from Honorable Chief Anayo Nebe. From Right Honorable Ben Wanko, notification of membership of All Progressive Grand Alliance, APGA. I hereby respectfully bring to your notice my resignation of membership of the People's Democratic Party, on whose platform I ran and won
silence, please.
Election.
Silence, please.
As a member of this honorable house and my membership of the All Progressive Grand Alliance, APGA. I resign as a member of the People's Democratic Party owing to the factionalization of party at the national level,
very important.
which has resulted in several litigations involving the party in courts. The above is for your information and necessary action. Please accept, Mr. Speaker, the assurances of my highest regards. Announcer, Right Honorable Ben Wanko. Pardon? Deputy Leader, Deputy Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm Chukwuka Onyema. I just want to clear the air on something. If people want to decamp for any reason,
please, silence,
please. They're not saying that they can't. It's a democracy that we run. But you don't come and put an insinuation that there's a problem in the party. We do not have any factions in PDP. We have only one chairman. We have only one national working committee. So there's no faction in PDP. And I repeat, there's no faction in PDP. And as they've decided to leave, we are not complaining. It's just that they should be ready to bear the consequences of their actions. Just because, and we don't have any, like I said about when somebody wanted to decamp. Sometimes when you have cancer and you want him to go, but do not insinuate that we have problems in PDP. A party that is about to take over the majority of the house and take over 2019, you are now saying that where is the problem? Which case are you talking about? We don't have any litigation. We don't have any litigations whatsoever. So, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to clear the air on that. There's no litigation and there's no problem in PDP. So they should be ready to bear the consequences of their actions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Noted.
Yes.
So we'll go to the first order of the day, which is commencement of debate on the general principles of Bill for an Act to amend the Electric Power Station Sector Reform Act, Chapter E7 Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to prohibit and criminalize estimated billing by electricity distribution companies who provide for compulsory installation of prepaid meters to all power consumers in Nigeria and for related matters, standing in the name of Honorable Femi Bajabiamila Miller. Honorable members who recall the bill was read the first time on Tuesday, 28 March 2018. I now invite Honorable Bajabiamila Miller to move that the bill be now read a second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. I rise to move for a bill for an act to amend the Electric Power Sector Reform Act, Cap E7, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to prohibit and criminalize estimated billing by electricity distribution companies and provide for compulsory installation of prepaid meters to all power consumers in Nigeria. And for related matters, HB 1384 be read a second time. I so move.
Empty.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, my name is Mohamed Tahir Munguno. I represent Martin Munguno Nganze Federal Constituency of Borno State. I hereby second the motion as heavily moved by the House Leader.
Leader, please lead the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before I launch into the debate, there was a bit of a mistake, an error, and I would like for the clerk, business and rules, and the clerk of the House to note that there are two co-sponsors, Honorable Chika and Honorable Agusoe, to this bill. And if we can do the necessary correction, I would appreciate it. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I'm going to be very hard with my choice of words in this debate. We're going to forget, or I'm going to forget the fancy title that has been given to this bill. And I'm going to call it exactly what it is. It is a bill to bring to a screeching halt, Mr. Speaker, the biggest economic ripoff and the biggest scam in modern day Nigerian economy history. The discos as they are today are smiling all the way to the bank, to the detriment of those who we represent. The question therefore is, do we want to be accomplices in a conspiracy of silence? Or do we want to be protectors for those who we represent in these chambers? Like I said, this is the biggest economic ripoff in our history. Today, consumers and Nigerians are being held to ransom and exploited on a monthly basis. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, the worst exploitation is when you cannot do anything about it. The worst form of exploitation is when you have nobody that has your back. This sharp practice, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, must be equally met and confronted with sharp legislation. There have been a few legislations that have been passed in this House, in this 8th Assembly, of which I am very proud. Of recent, we had the Ajaokuta amendments to the Privatization Act, where we deleted Ajaokuta from one of those companies that will be privatized. Every time we come up with landmark legislation in this House, we are always so proud. And we always use the rhetoric that if only this is the only thing we pass, we would have done well for our constituents and our mankind. This is another one of such legislation, Mr. Speaker. But the fact that we keep saying over and over again shows one thing: there's a lot of problems in Nigeria. It also shows, secondly, that we as legislators are living up to our billing. No pun intended on the word billing. Actually, I intend the pun. We are living up to our estimated billing as legislators, if we can get this through. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, what are the issues? I think first of all we need to consider what exactly is estimated billing. We hear the word being bandied around. What is estimated billing? Estimated billing is a practice where whimsically you estimate, that's the word, you estimate how much electricity is consumed by a consumer. Perhaps if you look at it sometimes or in a more dispassionate way, there may be nothing wrong with it. But that is where that estimated billing is almost to an exact point. Give or take a few naira here, a few naira there, up and down. What they call the margin of error. But that is not what is being practiced today. What we are witnessing, and our constituents are witnessing, is what I call estimated stealing or estimated theft. Mr. Speaker, it is nothing short of grand larceny. Or how do you explain a situation where a household that was paying 10,000 naira per month, all of a sudden, you begin to estimate their bill to 100,000. How do you explain such things? Or you leave your house for vacation for a month, and your bill, when you come back when the house was vacant for a whole month, is even higher than your bill for the previous month when you lived there. That is not estimated billing, that is grand larceny. Mr. Speaker, let me use an analogy that many of us may be able to relate to. We have drivers. Assuming that you give your driver 20,000 naira every week, you have estimated that this is how much it's going to cost to fuel the car. So every week, your driver gets 20,000 naira for fuel. And then you go away for a month on vacation. And your driver still wants to be entitled to the 20,000 naira a month? Will you as a person continue to pay 20,000 naira when you are not using the car? That analogy goes with when you don't have power. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, this is a service industry. Let us get that straight. Disco's distribution is a service industry. And it is trite that in the service industry, you pay for what you consume and you don't pay for what you don't consume. It is a service that you are paying for. That is why this flies in the face of common sense. The Discos have argued about tariff and low tariff. That's got nothing to do with the consumers. That's none of the consumers' business. There's something called caveat emptor. What was the agreement that was signed between the Discos and the federal government? Were they not aware of these issues? Why do you at a later date, in the middle of the game, now say, oh, the tariffs are too low? You cannot punish the end user, the consumer, for your own negligence or your own intentionally collecting a license, knowing along the way, this is what you're going to do. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I want to say, and I said at the beginning, that you will excuse me for my choice of language. This is a cartel. They are running a cartel and stealing people blind. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I will have you know that you cannot even purchase, the Discos don't allow it. You cannot even purchase meters from local manufacturers. The Discos believe and say that you must come through them. So they own the meters, but yet they will not give it to you. They talk about no money. There are people out there who have paid for months. So why not use their money to buy the meter? Because it does not pay them. Because of the greed of the Discos. Research has proven that where there are meters, they don't get as much electricity supply because it's easy to read. But where there are no meters, they get more electricity because it is estimated, the bill is estimated, and they make more money. Mr. Speaker, I don't know how we're going to go about this. If government needs to subsidize those meters, we understand that there is about 8 million deficit in terms of meter shortage. If we need to subsidize, then so be it. Let's put it in the budget. So that those who we represent, the masses of this country who are groaning in pain, will find support from the legislation that comes out of this house. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, you will agree with me that even when there is no electricity, because they will disconnect you if you don't pay this crazy bill, there are unintended consequences. There are medicines for people who are ill at home that need to be refrigerated. There is food that needs to be refrigerated. The unintended consequences could be food poison. These are health hazards. When you have no light, people use candles to see their way through. We have known of many houses that are burnt down from the usage of candles. So there are unintended consequences, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, it is biblical. It is also found in the Quran that life is light. God said, let there be light, and there was light. So I believe that the issue of light, and He gave us the wisdom. He gave us sunlight for light during the day. If there was no sunlight, even during the day, everywhere would be dark. So God gave us sunlight to be able to see. And He gave us wisdom and technology to develop electricity to see at night when the sun goes down. So therefore, I do not believe it is a privilege. I believe it is a right inherent from God that we must all have light to be able to see our way through. It is metaphorical. When you see your way through, you'll be able to accomplish so many things. So for as long as you pay for your electricity, you must have light. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, this bill has very few provisions. Many will argue, and particularly some from NEC, that, oh, there's a regulatory body and that they are making regulations, and I'm glad that with the heat is on them and they're making regulations. But there's a difference between regulation and the law. There's a difference between a regulation and an act. If NEC should make regulations today banning estimated billing and compelling installation of prepaid meters, the same NEC tomorrow, with one stroke of a pen, can change that regulation. Not so with a bill, not so with an act. And the same way the Constitution is superior to a law or a statute, so also is a law, if passed by this House, banning is superior to any regulation. So, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I believe that estimated billing was not in contemplation when we passed the Electricity Reform Act, because there's a section 96 which we seek to amend now, which NEC has cleverly hidden under. It doesn't talk about estimated billing, but they say it allows them to estimate billing. So that is what we seek to amend, amongst other provisions, that there shall no longer be estimated billing in the country called Nigeria, and to compel the provision of prepaid meters to everybody in Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, there are various ways to go about this, and I believe when we get to the public hearing stage, those things will be addressed. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, the bill, if passed, will ensure that a prepaid meter is installed in the premises of all consumers. The bill is here with me. There are certain far-reaching provisions. Mr. Speaker, I took time out in the last 1 week. I just threw out a tweet. I sent out messages so that one would have references and it will be a point. It will not be hearsay. And I got several notifications from consumers out there, from our constituents, thousands of them, providing information, documentation as to their billing this month and their billing last month, the estimated billing. Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to go through all them. I made a summary. We have people from Aba, Innocent Okpa, who said he lives in a single flat with one refrigerator, 2 fans, 1 television set, and a 100-watt bulb, with power supplied 2 or 3 times a week. He got an estimated bill last month of 20,000 naira. Malam Musa from Kano, the same thing. Bello Usman from Bauchi.
Either, except I see that one, I won't believe it. Don't bribe me. Speak to your mic.
Is Mr. Bello Usman. He resides at Medina Quarters in Bauchi. He says that his residence is not metered, hence outrageous bill of over 10,000 naira a month, despite several complaints to NEC. Mr. Speaker, I think you should take this up personally. It's your constituent. Mr. Speaker, we have messages from Michael Adebaki. He quotes I do not have air condition, which could consume a lot of energy. I'm finding it difficult to understand how my family use that amount of power in a 2-bedroom flat. I am now paying from 5,000 naira, I'm now paying 17,000 naira. Ekuda Olatunde from Lagos, the same thing. It goes on and on. There's a particular guy that I got his message. His name is Lawrence Obong of 23 Masianelli Street. That is where I live. Masianelli Street is through Lagos. Mr. Speaker, there's Pascal Okpara. There's Taufik Abdul. There's so many. It goes on and on and on and on. So, like I said earlier, this House stands again, yet again, to make a landmark legislation. Do we want to be part of the conspiracy of silence? Or do we want to stand to protect the people who we represent? This cannot continue. We cannot sustain this. We cannot. Mr. Speaker, the minimum wage in this country, you know how much it is. Yet people are getting bills of 20, 30, 40, 50,000 naira. And you want to wipe out corruption? How is that possible? So I think just as we did in Ajaokuta, just as we did in so many cases under your watch, I think we should very quickly amend this law under which they hide and compel the distributors to deal directly with the local manufacturers who they are sidelining. If need be, let's provide some kind of subsidy for the 8,000 or 8 million meters that are required so that we can move forward in this country and protect those who we represent. Thank you very much.
Well, I now believe the leader, since he said Medina quarters, there's no way he will have known that Medina quarters exist in Bauchi, so I know it's true. But I want to help your case with my own case too, from another part of Bauchi. My house in the village, sometimes for a progressive period of 3 months, I might not even go there for a day, but I was getting constantly estimated billing of 80,000 naira a month, even though the door has not been opened. So I had to ask them to disconnect the electricity completely. So as it is, I'm not connected to the national grid. So in view of the fact that time is gone, I've seen that quite a number of members want to speak. We'll take few and we'll go to Deputy Whip. Then I'll come to the leadership.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for granting me this opportunity to speak on this very timely bill. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, this will go down in history as the most caring piece of legislation by the 8th Assembly if we pass it. You will recall, Mr. Speaker, that when PACN was unbundled and we agreed that they should privatize, among others, the distribution, many raised opposition. But somehow, it became government's policy. Today, Mr. Speaker, we are under serious financial pressure. As I speak, Mr. Speaker, I come from a place that has been taken out of the national grid by Benin Electricity Distribution Company for the past 2 years. And the reason is simple. Estimated bills that were calculated together, which the people disputed, they said, well, for you disputing it, instead of coming to grips with what they are complaining about, they are shut out of the grid for the past 2 years plus. Now, Mr. Speaker, the leader has clearly explained the arbitrariness in the billing, and you have even corroborated it. Everyone is under the oppression of the discourse. And yet, here are the people who had our commonwealth handed over to them for peanuts, and they're making a lot of money from it. They have added nothing. Today we hear that generation has outstripped distribution capacity. What a shame. Distribution, even transmission and distribution are lagging behind generation. Now, these are the same people who would not want to install meters simply because people will then be paying for exactly what they consume. Even when you pay for meters, they will not give you these meters. And yet, we are told that meters are expected to be free. Mr. Speaker, the last point I want to make is that the regulatory agency established forum in various locations. It will be wonderful if any of us tries, like I've done on 2 occasions, to attend the meeting of such forum. People come with cries of woes, how they have been fleeced by the billings of the arbitrary billing on this estimated billing culture. And not one case has ever been won by the discourse. And all you get is a small palliative and say, okay, we have discovered that this was overbilled. You go ahead and pay what you have agreed ought to be. In most cases, they will tell you what has already been billed must first be paid before you now continue with this newly agreed sum. Mr. Speaker, Nigerians are in trouble with this discourse. And the only power we have is to use legislation to help our people. And that is why I repeat that all well-meaning members of this 8th Assembly must support this bill so that we will be regarded as very caring set of legislators. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Rules and business, then empty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Okay, Jeff. I represent the good people of Buruku, my dear colleagues. I'm from Benue State. Mr. Speaker, I'm personally a victim of what the leader seeks to correct. But the leader has put it so eloquently, I doubt whether I have the eloquence to put it better than he has. I'm standing up merely because what the leader has said, our records cannot verify. He says this bill is co-sponsored by, I think, Chika and some other persons. Our records do not reflect that, so I don't think that should go into the records because the leader is the sole sponsor of this bill, as far as our records can say. So.
Empty.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, my name is Mohamed Tahir Monguno. I represent Marte Monguno, Nganze Federal Constituency of Borno State. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, first and foremost, it is not rocket science to install prepaid meters in our homes. Because just about 2 weeks ago, I was in Sudan. Sudan is not as developed as Nigeria, but in all their houses, prepaid meters are installed. There is no estimated billing in Sudan. Even closer home here, when you go to Chad, I've been a regular visitor to Chad. Even in Chad, even at the level of their development, all their houses, their places of business and their places of industries, prepaid meters are installed. There is no estimated billing. So the issue of prepaid meters is not rocket science for the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission to say that they will find it very difficult to install. So now that they have shown their inability or reluctance to install prepaid meters in all our homes, then the only panacea to compel them to do that is by way of legislation, to make laws as sponsored by the leader so that they will install prepaid meters in our homes, in our businesses, place of businesses, and whatever. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, as representative of the people, as rightly observed by the leader of the House, we are here to jealously guard and protect the interests of the Nigerian people, and that is why we are here. In whatever we are doing, we should seem not only to be defending the interests of the people that we are representing here, but we should be seen to be doing that manifestly, and that is what this bill seeks to do. Let me also relate my own personal experience to you. Before the advent of Boko Haram insurgents in Borno State, my family resided in Maiduguri. Every week, in the 6th Assembly, every week I used to go home. Now that with the advent of Boko Haram, I moved my family to Abuja. My house is under lock and key in Maiduguri. But every month I get an estimated billing for power that I have not consumed. In fact, the bill that they bring to me here is in Maiduguri is even much more than the house that I am staying here in Abuja with my family, that is with a prepaid meter. So that amplifies the position of the leader and the need for us to support the second reading of this bill so that the issue of estimated billing will be rooted out of this country. Thank you.
Time. Honorable Sadiq, we'll take one here, and then we'll close.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. If not for the fact, Mr. Speaker, that if this bill is approved by us for second reading, it will go to a committee in which we will invite experts in this field to come and ventilate their own points of arguments. I would have opposed the second reading of this bill. However, since approval of this bill by this House, to be read for the second time would mean going to a committee, I will hold a little of my fire. But I would say, Mr. Speaker, by your grace, I am a member of the August Parliament. In the recent past, there is no capital of ECOWAS member country that I have not gone except where there are political problems like Guinea-Conakry and Guinea-Bissau. In all these capitals, Mr. Speaker, that I went to, except for the 5 English-speaking countries of Gambia, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, and Ghana is doing actually better. All the English-speaking countries have problems with their electricity. But the French-speaking countries, they have no problem, including Niger, Benin Republic, and Togo that we supply electricity from here. Now, let me ask us, why is it so? Last year, Mr. Speaker, if you could remember, this same discourse, they have sent a request here through the presidency for us to approve for them, for federal government to guarantee a bond for them to borrow. I was the only person who spoke for that bill. We rejected it. Now, Mr. Speaker, let me make my point. Number one, the foundation on which the cell of this discourse was laid is faulty, because we sold them to people who have no capacity to carry them out. Number two, Mr. Speaker, the economy of this country is import dependent. Therefore, we don't manufacture the meters here. The meters have to be imported. Now, when we came in 2015, I remember correctly, Mr. Speaker, single phase meter in this country cost 23,000. The double phase, the 3 phase cost 48,000. Today, Mr. Speaker, the single phase meter costs 53,000 and the 3 phase, the single phase 53,000 and the 3 phase meter costs 90,000. Now, assuming that the meter is 50,000, if you are going to give if you are going to give 500,000 households, which you can get in Suleja here, 500,000 households, that means 50,000 times 500 households, you are going to get 2.5 billion naira. I am coming, please. Please, let me land. Mr. Speaker, I hope I have your protection. I hope I have your protection, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Sadiq is perfectly protected. Please, honorable members, listen to him in absolute quiet, please.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I'm not speaking for capital. I'm speaking for the people that brought me here. Let me say, Mr. Speaker, I'm a lawyer. If you are going to charge, if you amend this bill, that means you are going to charge a disco to court for not supplying meters. If they are my clients, if they come to me and say federal government is going to sue me for not supplying meters, I say go to court and say I am not guilty. Why are you not guilty? I will tell them that inability to supply is not failure to supply. If you are unable to supply, it's not because you have deliberately refused to supply. Simply because this discourse cannot afford those meters. Because the meters are not manufactured here. By the way, Mr. Speaker, I can see the sentiment. It is the same way that was last year. But let me conclude simply let me conclude by saying, Mr. Speaker, to me, courts do not usually expect a person to do something which is impossible. If you criminalize this conduct, there is no way you can get a conviction against a disco that does not supply meters because they do not manufacture them. Therefore, to me, I will support the second reading of the bill because I know that experts in this field who are feeling the brunt will come before us and ventilate their own points of argument so that we can make an informed decision. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The return of Honorable Gudaje Kazaure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My highly respected colleagues, my name is Honorable Mohammed Gudaje Kazaure, member representing Kazaure, Roni, Gwiwa, Enkwashi. Mr. Speaker, I am from Jigawa State. Mr. Speaker, this bill is very good, but has a very strong side effect. Very, very strong side effect. Because if we go back to section 14(1)(b) of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of the government. That is, Mr. Speaker, also section 4(2) of the 1999 Constitution. This Parliament shall make laws for the peace, order, and good governance of the Federation. Mr. Speaker, let me give an example. I live, Mr. Speaker, in Kano, where there is a very populated city with almost 70% of common people. I can see I live in Hotoro in my area where they are charging common people 1,000 bill every month. But if you put that meter to a common man, he cannot use electric iron in his house at all. He cannot use electric cooker in his house. He cannot use a deep freezer in his house. Because if I can remember in my house, Mr. Speaker, they sent me a bill of 15,000 naira monthly. But as they put me that meter now, I buy that recharge of 65,000 monthly in my house. So if people in here can afford to pay that money, there is a problem to a common man. And why I quoted in the Constitution, sir, because our people will reject that meter and anything will happen. And the crisis will even come because I can see they are fighting in my area with the people because when they put that meter, in the house, they call that meter Barewa because it's running very quickly, Mr. Speaker. Ask the people of your area in Bauchi, they will witness you that. They call that meter Barewa. So if you put that meter to a common man, you stop common man for using air conditioning and the others if we can afford to buy. And that people that are doing weltering on the street, how are they going to use that prepaid meter, my leader? So if you want this bill, my leader, if you want this bill, you have to come with a bill that will reduce the unit cost first. If you reduce the unit cost, then you can say you can come with this bill and allow each and every house in Nigeria to put a prepaid meter. But if you never reduce this unit cost for now, our people will suffer too much. Because if we can afford to buy, but what of the people that their salary is 15,000 a month, their salary is 20,000 a month, their salary is some at Mr. Speaker, if you put that meter in your common man house, the minimum things you will pay, if you can press his clothes, the minimum charge, he will buy recharge card, at least he will recharge 10,000 a month, while they are charging him 2,000, 3,000 a bill. So there is a serious problem in that bill. So my leader, I want you to go back with your bill first, to bring the bill that will reduce the unit cost, that a common man can afford to buy a recharge card in prepaid meter, because there is a serious problem. I tested in my house. So at last, Mr. Speaker, why I said this, the National Assembly shall make laws for the peace and order. But this thing will destroy peace. This thing will destroy peace, Mr. Speaker. Because our people definitely they will protest. Somebody with a 15,000 salary, how if you put him that meter, you stop him using iron, you stop him using electric cooker, you stop him using, because if you use that, they will charge him 20,000, 30,000. His salary will remain in the distribution company. And I can remember, Mr. Speaker, even the staff of the distribution company in Kano, they come to my house putting that meter for me. The staff of the distribution, he's telling me, now his salary is 65,000, but in his own house, he stopped using air conditioning. Because if he say he will continue using air, it will finish his salary as staff of the distribution company. So as far as we are here for the common people, we have to reduce the unit cost first before we make it definitely to put a prepaid meter to every Nigerians. Seriously, Mr. Speaker, we have to look. Leader, this bill is very good. I agree with you, it's very good, but has a strong side effect. Because our people, they don't have money now. But if you want to us, when we go back to the constituency, they will throw a stone on us. Because they will say we are the one who put this. I can see people are rejecting these meters. So that bill they are charging, 2,000 per house, a common house, 3,000 median house, 10,000, 5,000 big man house. It's better, Mr. Speaker. But if you put this meter, only big men can enjoy electricity in Nigeria. But because you cannot press your clothes, you cannot use electric cooker, a common man. So what is the use of the government? If it is that, we could have dissolved privatization and back to NEPA, National Electricity Power Authority, to reduce the price to the common people. We are budgeting money. This crude oil money is for the people, Mr. Speaker. So we have to look at these issues, Mr. Speaker, seriously. There is a strong, my highly respected colleagues, there is a side effect in this prepared meter. It's good, but there is a strong side effect. We have to look it for our people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I think we should cut it off here. There's nothing that will be said that has not been said. Honorable Nkiruka, gender balance.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am Kiruka Oyejoch. I represent the good people of Iskwatu Munich Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for allowing me to speak on this bill. I am interested because last 2 weeks I was in my constituency and the town union head of my own ward and 3 other women came. And what was the issue? It wasn't even about estimated billing. It was a situation where this disco that is handling the electricity in my own area, what they did was they brought a meter for a whole community, just 1 meter. And what they did was, at the end of the month, they will ask the community people to contribute some money. And within themselves, they are like, this house, 3 people are living here. The other house, 1 person. The other house, 5 persons. And this one has cooler. This one has a refrigerator. This one, you understand that kind of thing? And they were like, you cannot collect 100,000 and you are saying all of us should pay. And so the people who believe that they don't have gadgets in their houses were like, we can't pay certain amount of money. So beyond estimated billing for houses, in the local areas, they have gone beyond this estimated and they are joining communities together to the extent that people fought and they went to police station. Mr. Speaker, that's why I said I must stop. It's not about just estimation. It's about estimation and it's about joining heads together that we have settled a lot of fight because there's no way you go and join communities together and you say they should bring certain amount of money. When of course, in those houses, most people that are not living in the village, you are taxing them to pay. The people that are living there, you are taxing them to pay. So, so Mr. Speaker, because of time, I agree totally with the original submission of the leader. I received the text message that he sent that constituents who have issues of estimated billing should forward to him. And I forwarded that text to my constituency and to my constituency office and asked them to be forwarded to every member. And I'm happy that he got that data. So, Mr. Speaker, there's no way we can agree that because of tariff that we should support estimated billing. And what is very exciting about what he just said is that it's apt to criminalize people who have openly decided that they should defraud. For me, this is corruption in another form. You know that people are not using this, and you're telling them to bring the money for what? It's corruption, pure eating. So I support this bill. People who refuse to do what eventually will come out with should be criminalized. And what it simply means is that they should face the law, and of course, law will take its course. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this bill in a tight, and I thank you so much for.
Honorable Henry begged and said 2 minutes, so 2 minutes, and I'll watch.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Henry Walba, representing the enterprising people of Mbitoli Kedru Federal Constituency. I thank you so much for giving me 2 minutes to just highlight 2 points on this bill. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak for the people of my constituency that I represent. I am currently on radio in Imo State, where I have encouraged communities to go to my constituency office and fill a form that seeks to build a matrix to know exactly how much is being consumed via estimated billing in my constituency. But I want to share the figures that I have so far gotten from the Southeast. There are 96 local governments in the Southeast, 5 states in the Southeast. And in some communities, estimated billing comes as high as 750,000 naira monthly. This gives you 28 billion naira every month, just from 5 states of the Southeast. It is critical that we take a very good look at this issue of estimated billing. It is not enough to bundle communities together and say, on the 31st of January this year, the Minister of Power came out and unveiled the Power Sector Recovery Program. And in that program, he identified that between January 2015 to December 2016, we had lost 420 billion naira in the power sector. And therefore, he called that they should set up a task force to go and recover monies from communities. If you are going to criminalize consumption of electricity without payment, I think we should also criminalize charging people or billing them when they have not consumed electricity. Just like they are sending you the speaker's bill, sir, there are so many people who are also getting charged without consumption. I think this is daylight robbery, and I speak strongly in support of this bill. I so submit. Thank you.
Guess we have done justice too. Who has not spoken before? Honorable Flatter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Abubakar Fulata is my name. I represent Perniwa Creek and some Gudi Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Jigawa State. Mr. Speaker, what is happening is not even an estimated billing system. What's happening is purely imaginary billing system. Estimation is based on reality. Imagination is pure abstraction. And the situation is worse in the rural areas where individual houses are there is no documentation at all. Neighbor officials or discourse move from house to house, tell you, okay, we have come, your money is due. How many gloves do you have in your house? 2, 3. Your bill is 1,000 naira. They will collect this thing. They will collect 1,000 naira, and it is not documented. In the end, the community or that same person will be presented with an official bill. Mr. Speaker, I had the nasty experience of paying the bill of my of 3 local governments. I had to pay 750,000, Mr. Speaker, the official one. Meanwhile, when I asked my constituents, did you pay? He said, yes, we paid. Where is the evidence that you've been billed? No evidence, Mr. Speaker. So we should support this bill, Mr. Speaker. There must be a coherent system of billing. There must be, all payments must be based on official meterized consumption. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We're all saying the same thing. Honorable Gaza, it's just waste of time as well.
Right Honorable Speaker, Gaza Jonathan Gbefi representing Karukefi Kokona Federal Constituency. Right Honorable Speaker, I just want to bring up one very serious point. In the course of supplying electricity in the value chain, the communities are allowed to supply transformers. The communities are allowed to supply wires. But when you want to source your meter, it's a problem. You must buy your meter from the distributor. Are they distributors or meter sellers? What I'm trying to say is that they should open the market for sale of meters. And by the time that is done, anybody, even in the rural areas, can go to the open market. But of course, it will be regulated from some certificates given from NERC, so that you can go and purchase your meter at the open market rate, come and put it in your house. But so far, the discos are allowed to supply these meters, and at their discretion, they will keep withholding it and giving estimated billings. Thank you very much.
You are amending a bill? How?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was trying to figure out how to, because he said that originally the names of Honorable Chika and Honorable Agusoye were not there. So I want to amend the line that says sponsor to include Honorable Chika and Honorable Agusoye as co-sponsors of this bill. I believe when we sent it, it had their names. But if it says, I would defer to him that it did not have their names. So I would want to include that.
But we have the documents, leader. I've been shown this document. You are the sole sponsor of this bill. And we cannot go back to start amending the Gazette. So if they have been excluded, it's unfortunate. But I don't think the rules of the House, okay, it's just estimation. And we have been told that it's imaginary. So you are free to imagine that you are estimating. So I guess we can draw the curtains. Honorable Ose Ogun.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm Sejus Ose Ogun. I represent Eastern Southeast, Eastern Northeast, and I'm from Edo State. Mr. Speaker, what I just want to add here is that the federal government has even given the disclosure 213 billion intervention fund. Despite all this, my community is not connected to the national grid.
for the past 7 years because of this same estimated billing. Then today, they will tell you, I'm surprised that Godaje is talking about houses paying 1,000 naira or 2,000 naira in Kando. The minimum we pay in my community, some of the other villages around, is 8,000 naira. For farmers, they cannot buy paracetamol, Mr. Speaker, that is sold for 10 naira. There are farmers, you say they should come and pay 8,000 naira. Then what they do, when you can pay 1,000 naira, they say, okay, they give you life for 2-3 days in a month. Then they are saying the community is owing 100 million naira. A community that cannot produce 1 million yen. People that go to farm and you tell them to pay 8,000 naira. When they pay 1,000 naira, you say they are owing that bill. Mr. Speaker, I support this bill 200%. It should be criminalized. They are taking us for a ride. There's been a picture trending on the internet. There's a house in Ghana, a mud house with prepaid meter. Mud houses. Now, you give light to villages. When you travel the highway in Nigeria, you see there are light points on during the day. And then the minister is talking about we are losing energy. Why will we not lose it? Because the discourse will deliberately do that. Now, if I'm to pay an estimated bill, why should I bother? I told my uncle once, the light is on during the day. What are you doing with this light now? He said I should leave it. Whether they leave it on or off, they're going to pay 1,000 naira. That was even in the days of PHCN. Not even now. We are not on the national grid. To add to what my sister said, they added my village, Uboha, to Anegbete. Anegbete is in a donut. They added to another village, in another community, Uzea. We are all added together. So if my village has a problem, Anegbete cannot get light, Uzea cannot get light. That is not right. So, Mr. Speaker, if it's possible, I will move that. There will be public hearing next week. And then maybe this bill should be passed like before the end of next month. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Raji.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Wali Raji. I'm from a Federal Constituency of Lagos State. This bill is just addressing one aspect of the exploitation that is going on in the country in the electricity industry. Another aspect that we need to also look into is supply of transmission equipment like transformers, cables, and poles by communities to enable the distribution companies, to supply electricity, and yet they are made to pay exorbitant bills. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't know how we want to look at it. We should not limit the focus of this bill to criminalizing estimated billing alone. We should also look at the aspect that will protect the consumers, from being made to supply the equipment for distribution of electricity to their various homes. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to support this bill once again, but I want to emphasize that we look at other aspects, through which people are exploited. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Last contribution will be one of the estimated co-sponsors of the bill, Honorable Chika.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues. I'm Abubakar Chika Adamu. I represent Shiroro Rafimuya Federal Constituency, Mr. Speaker. I'm from Niger State. I think, Mr. Speaker, you call me one of the imaginary co-sponsors of the bill. However, Mr. Speaker, as the leader presented the bill, we look at section 96 of the bill, which gave power to National Electricity Regulation Commission to probably make laws or regulate the activities of the power. But however, when we go to section 67 of the bill, Mr. Speaker, section 67B said installation, maintenance, and reading of meters, billing, and collections. Mr. Speaker, what we find here is that reading of meter bills that will allow you to even make estimate is now history. We use the digital meters. With the digital meters, you don't need to estimate anything as a bill. All you need is to provide the meters for the customers to be able to use. But Mr. Speaker, what these guys do, they do not only estimate bills house by house, they estimate bills sometimes based on your position. Mr. Speaker, let me give you a critical example. I occupy a 2-bedroom flat here in Abuja. At a point in time, the meter got spoiled. I immediately reported to the Abuja distribution company. They started billing me. At a point in time, I saw the bill sold to about 50%. I went to their office and I asked them, what happened? They said, no, they have estimated the bill in each house by 25%. But I said, why my own 50? Then somebody jokingly said, maybe because we learned that though it's not your name on the house, but that a member is living in that house. So you can see the sharp practices. Mr. Speaker, right now as I'm speaking, go to my constituency, Shiroro and Muya, they've been in blackout for a long period of time. We generate power in Shiroro. But however, Mr. Speaker, they went and increased the estimated billing to each and every house. And the community said, we can't pay this bill. This is too much. We've been on this battle with the young and vibrant children of that local government, the youths. Mr. Speaker, as I'm speaking, I've been begging this for the last 2 months. They said they want to go and shut down Shiroro power station because there is no way you generate power down at their backyard and then you deny them electricity. Mr. Speaker, if this thing goes on like this, I believe the people will rebel not only against us, but even against the institutions. And let me tell you, part of my discussion with these young chaps, they asked me, I told them, Abuja distribution station that distribute this electricity are not for the government, they are business entities. They said, who tell you that it is in our interest that you people sell our investment to them? They said, we are against selling this national electricity power or PHCN to individuals. However, they even question me, they said, you provide transformers with your money. You provide electricity cables with your money. You provide wires to take light, or when rainstorm damages, these people cannot provide it. Then why is it we should be paying them? And these are fundamental issues, Mr. Speaker, we need to look at. We cannot, all of us here, I mean all of us, you will look at our budget, our zonal intervention, you will see transformers. We provided transformers for the community and they are charged at a higher rate. This is not acceptable. We don't need to accept this, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I believe with the coming of this bill, a lot should happen and a lot will be unveiled during the public hearing. And I urge my colleagues to be there. Like my dear friend Kazaure said, the price or the unit of electricity is even very expensive, but he supports the bill. I hope you will be there to now charge them on that issue of unit of electricity that is very high. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, my dear colleagues.
So, honorable colleagues, I now put the question. The question is the bill we now read the second time. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it. Clerk is invited to read the long title of the bill.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, a bill for an act to amend the Electricity Power Sector Reform Act, Chapter E7 Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to prohibit and criminalize estimated billing by electricity distribution companies and provide for compulsory installation of prepaid meters to all power consumers in Nigeria and for related matters. Second reading.
Bills referred to Committee on Power. But one other important thing not to lose sight of the issues marshaled by the leader in the course of leading debate on that bill. I think we may want to tax our legislative brains to see how we can provide the enabling environment for Nigerian undertakings to start producing these meters. As long as we don't do that in Nigeria, there's little or nothing we can do about controlling the supply of these meters. And I don't know, what is it? Is it rocket science, like Honorable Monguno has said? to produce ordinary meters. Why is it that we're not producing these meters in Nigeria? That's one critical question that we must answer. Leader.
If I may, Mr. Speaker, because you raise a very critical issue. But there are producers, there are local manufacturers, and I mentioned it during the debate. But unfortunately, these discos are not allowing them to supply to the consumer. The consumer has to go through these discos who already have their own cartel of suppliers. They import and they drain on our foreign exchange as well. There are local manufacturers, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
And lastly, the referral I made on Honorable Toby's point of privilege. Clerk, are you listening? I want to change the referral in view of the fact that I don't want to be misunderstood. There's no House resolution authorizing any investigation. So it means that if investigation were to be taken by the Committee on Ethics, it would be restricted because it wouldn't fall within the purview of those investigations that you conduct within the contemplation of the Constitution. And because it's a very serious matter, and I did say in the course of my ruling that any money withdrawn from any account of the government, not in line with the provision of the Constitution or not subject to appropriation, is as good as money stolen from the system. And if the allegation is true, then it means there's a very grievous allegation. So in view of that, and I did say that the referral was for discovery first. We want to know whether it is true. I didn't want to allow debate so that we cannot speculate. And so I will join Committee on Finance on the reference so that if it is true that the money has been paid without appropriation, because we don't know the source of the money, even if money has exchanged hands, let them do that discovery and then return to the House for a resolution as to what will be done going forward in consequence of their findings. So the referral now is to board ethics and privileges and Committee on Finance on that motion, but it's not for investigative purpose because there's no resolution on it.
Colleagues, the second order of the day is commencement of debate on the general principle of a bill for an act to provide for establishment of the National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism for training, certification, and registration of personnel in Nigeria and for related matters. Standing in the name of the House Leader, honorable members will recall that the bill was transmitted from the Senate seeking concurrence of the House and read the first time on Wednesday 7 February 2018. I now invite the leader to move that the bill be now read a second time. Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. Speaker, in view of the fact that time is far gone, I will just go through basically the title of the bill, because it is what it says it is. And it's for concurrence. It has been debated thoroughly at the Senate. It basically seeks to establish an institute for hospitality and tourism for training, certification, and registration of personnel in Nigeria. And we'll all agree that this is actually necessary. The tourism industry, hotels, and all of them, I don't know if we have a register or data to regulate, or that tells us that we have this number of hotels in Nigeria, or that that the personnel are certified as hotel. Oh, I guess I haven't moved the bill. Sorry, the brain is saturated at this point. Mr. Speaker, I move that a bill for an act to provide for establishment of the National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism, for training, certification, and registration of personnel in Nigeria, and for related matters, HB 1316, be read a second time. I so move.
Any seconder? Honorable Shuaib.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my dear honorable colleagues. My name is Abdurrahman Shuaib. I represent Movie North, Movie South, and Maiha Federal Constituency. I'm from Adamawa State. I rise to second the motion as moved by the leader that the bill be read the second time. I so second.
Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, once again. So that we move speedily, I will not reiterate what I put the cart before the horse the last time. So basically, it speaks for itself. It establishes an institute for hospitality and tourism for training, certification, and registration of hotels and their personnel in Nigeria. It's been debated in the Senate, and it's here for concurrence. And unless any other member has an issue with any provision of the bill, I will rest my case at this point. Thank you.
The question now is that the bill be now read the second time. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk is invited to read the long title of the bill.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism for training, certification, and registration of personnel in Nigeria and for related matters. Second reading.
Bill referred to the Committee of the Whole. Honorable colleagues, the third order of the day is commencement of debate on the general principle of a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the National Agency for Technology Management to play a leading role in the build-up of expertise for effective management service and related matters, standing in the name of Honorable Uzoma Ikema Bonta. Honorable members will recall that the bill was read the first time on Wednesday, 7 February 2018. I now invite Honorable Abonta to move that the bill be now read a second time. Chairman rules.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Abonta is conspicuously unavailable to move item number 3 on the order paper and therefore move to step it down.
Item stepped down by the leave of the House. Honorable colleagues, the fourth order of the day is a motion on the need to connect local government areas in Ogoni Land River State to national grid through the Afan Power Station, standing in the name of Honorable Barinada. Honorable Barinada is invited to move the motion. Chairman, Rules and Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Barinada 2 is unavailable to move item number 4 on the order paper. Therefore, rise to move to step it down.
Item stepped down by the leave of the House. Honorable colleagues, the fifth order of the day is a motion on need to address the inability to secure places of primary assignment by National Youth Service Corps NYSC members, standing in the name of Honorable Bolaji Yusuf Ayinla. Honorable Ayinla is invited to move the motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My fellow honorable member, good afternoon. Urgent need to address the inability of some National Youth Service Corps NYSC member to secure place of their primary assignment. Mr. Speaker, my fellow honorable member, the House note that one of the major aims for establishing the National Youth Service NYSC program is to promote unity among the Nigerian, especially the youth, by posting graduates of higher institutions to various places other than their state of origin for a compulsory 1 year to serve their father nationality. Observe that in recent years, many members of the National Youth Service Corps NYSC have always found it difficult to secure place of primary assignment as the organization they are posted to often reject them on the ground that they do not have money to pay them, or they do not need their services. Concerned that the negative response from organization and institution, the corps members are posted to a cause causing a lot of frustration for them, as several months are spent in looking for places where they will be able to serve their fatherland with the 1-year service period. Further convinced that there is a need to investigate the reason causing for a rejection of these members by various organizations and institutions in their country, I resolve to mandate the Committee Youth Development to investigate the reason for the rejection of National Youth Service Corps members by organizations and institutions posted for their 1-year compulsory national service and report back within the 4 weeks for further legislative. I so move.
Any seconder? Yes, Honorable Chika.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues. I'm Abubakar Chika Adamu. I represent Shorora Female Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Niger State. Mr. Speaker, I wish to second the motion ably presented by my very good friend and brother Balaji Yusuf. I so second.
Honorable Aila, in 1 minute. Dr. Bodayonide, you would like to say something? Okay, in 1 minute.
Fellow honorable member, right honorable speaker, there is a various hardship for our National Youth Service Corps, most especially the member in posting them to various organizations which normally rejected them without any cause. On the platform that they pay them, they are this, they are that. I don't see the reason why should they find it difficult, which is a compulsory assignment for 1 year to serve their fatherland. The organization and various institutions reject them. The National Youth Service Corps organization should find a way to penetrate and see what is the actual reason of sending these people, innocent children, after graduating without getting a job, and which is a lot of things that is not supposed to be doing to the youth corps. I want a situation whereby if they realize that they are not going to employ them, the National Youth Service Organization should let these kids know up front, rather than sending them, and after sending them, they now realize they don't need their services or they cannot pay them. This is what I want. My fellow honorable member, we have various youth service in our various countries that are going for services. They were affected by this issue. So I do move the motion. The House should liaise with the Director of National Youth Service Corps to work out on the modalities of handling the rejection of corpus member by organization they are posted for by their primary assignment. This will enable them to know the solution to provide to the anomalies being practiced by all these companies. I urge my honorable member to support this motion because it will benefit their country and it will benefit their state, which they represent, and their constituency, rather than the corpus being sent and they are not accepting them in the various ways. Thank you very much. I urge the honorable colleagues to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The questioner is those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Honorable colleagues, the sixth order of the day is consideration of report of the Committee on Tertiary Education and Services on a bill for an act to provide easy access to higher education for Nigerians through interest-free loans from Nigerian Education Bank established in the Act, with a view to providing education for all Nigerians and for related matters. Honorable members will recall that the report was laid on Thursday, 28 March 2018. Honorable Aminu Suleiman will move for its consideration.
Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues, I'm from Kano State, and my name is Honorable Aminu Suleiman. I represent Page Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I do move that the House consider the report of the Committee on Tertiary Education on a bill for an act to provide